And we're on.
Hello, and welcome to Young Guns, where we discuss college sports and pick each other's brains to make sense of our thoughts on the sports. Tonight, we discuss and finalize the picks for championship weekend. So join me, your host, the amazing Buckeye Mike, as I am joined by the most rational, unbiased Alabama fan you will ever meet, Jackson, the biggest, die-hard, and most loyal Louisville Cardinal fan you will ever see. Austin, or technically me. Unfortunately, the most fanatic and loyal fan of them all, the man who told me himself, bleeds blue and gold, or so he says. The brain behind our amazing group, WillND, could not unfortunately join us tonight. And so that means my only other guest is one word, the one, the only, the GOAT himself, Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports. So grab your pizza out of the oven, sit back and enjoy as we talk Champ Week in the greatest sport in the world, college football. How are we doing tonight, gentlemen?
Doing great.
Fantastic.
Nobody told me there was going to be pizza.
All right, so start off. We're going to talk Conference USA. I can get to it. Conference USA championship is North Texas Mean Green at 7-5, 6-2, and in the conference versus the defending, reigning Conference USA champs, UTSA. Wow, Roadrunners at 10-2, 8-0 in the conference. Your thoughts, gentlemen. Jeffrey, you go first.
Yeah, these games like this are so tough because, you look at the records and it's kind of like you look at like the games we're going to be getting to at the Power Five, and you see a team that's undefeated in conference play versus a team that's got a couple losses. And you automatically want to lean toward that team that's undefeated because they're usually way better. But in these smaller conferences, the teams are closer together because there's like not one team that's super elite. But UTSA is a very solid team, and they have gone undefeated. They've played really well this season. North Texas, they've had some ups and downs. Their offense has been inconsistent. UTSA is much better on both sides of the ball, so I'm going to go with the Roadrunners to meet their way to a win, 35-31 over those Mean Green.
Jackson.
Well, let's see. It's a tough one. Oh, who am I kidding? It's not. Texas San Antonio all the way.
With a final score of.
Let's see. I have my final score posted somewhere. Come on. It's going to be a UTSA victory of 38-24.
Yeah,
Austin?
for me, North Texas, UTSA. I'll be honest with you. I haven't seen much of either of these teams this year, but I just off of what I've seen, UTSA, they've looked really impressive, and they're the defending conference champions for a reason. North Texas, they've shown signs of being a really good team, but inconsistency. I'm gonna go UTSA Roadrunners. Meet me 34-17, and they go back to back.
Okay, so even though he's not here, I have the brain of this whole thing's picks. So WillND decided to go with UTSA as well. As far as this game for me, no, he didn't give me a score. As far as this goes for me, it comes down to who's going to be the better quarterback. Austin On is a decent quarterback, has issues, turnover issues, has built up from the problems he's had to improve his faults. Whereas Frank Harris, he's solid all around, prefers to pass over taking off for the run. But he has the amazing ability to do both. Very, very underrated quarterback in the entire league. As far as UTSA, the offense is balanced for the most part, evenly. Solid ground game and very, very good through the air. Their defense has struggled throughout, but have come into form lately. And with North Texas, the defense has improved progressively through the season. Still almost continuously gives up a ton of points, though. And Seth Luttrell's been a great head coach, improved the team this year, although the team struggled to inferior opponents. With that being said, I'm going to take the Meet Roadrunners 45-42.
I think that's a great point that you bring up about Frank Harris, by the way. He is very, very underrated. I mean, he's really solid. It's just, unfortunately, he plays for a team that a lot of people don't watch. But I suggest you give Frank Harris a look this weekend because he is a very solid quarterback.
That being said, our next matchup is the MAC championship. And the MAC is 7-5 Toledo versus 9-3 Ohio. Jeffrey?
Yeah, this game's kind of similar vibes to the UTSA North Texas game. I mean, Toledo, they've been a solid team this season. I mean, they've turned it around. They've got a solid program on both sides of the ball, but Ohio is just a better team. I mean, it's not just that their record's better, because obviously that would be just a easy way out to say, oh, Ohio's going to win because they have a better record than Toledo. That's not necessarily the case. You just look at statistics. Ohio is the better team on both sides of the ball. Their defense is better than Toledo, not by much, but they're both solid, but Ohio's better. And Ohio's offense, another Harris at quarterback, C.J. Harris this time. Not as good as Frank Harris, but C.J. Harris, he's a solid quarterback as well. He's a little bit better than Tucker Gleason. Tucker Gleason, he turns it over a little bit too much as well. He's a solid quarterback, but Ohio just has a better team on both sides of the ball. Shout out to Tim Albin at head coach, done a great job turning the Ohio Bobcat program around from 3-9 to 9-3, and I think he's going to make it 10-3 with a 28-24 win over the Toledo Rockets.
I agree with Jeffrey. I'm going to go with Ohio for the victory, and it's going to be I was going to go with Toledo, but now I'm just like, when I saw that Ohio has the number one offense, I thought to myself, going with the offense on this one. So let's go Ohio.
Yeah, for this game, I'm going Ohio as well. It's not just because of their offense. Ohio can play some defense. They can get some turnovers. This defense has made a huge turnaround from what it was last year. This defense can hold teams very steadily. They can force turnovers, and I believe Ohio, off the fact that their defense can stop Toledo's run game and put pressure on the quarterback. I've got Ohio 41, Toledo 13. I think Ohio runs away with it. I think their defense and offense is just too much at the end in for them, and what a great turnaround, as you said, Jeffrey, for the Ohio Bobcats.
Well, I didn't think I would say this early, but in honor of Will, not so fast, my friends. For whatever reason, Will has taken Toledo in this matchup, which when I look at everything, I can kind of maybe see why, but Ohio is just on that big turnaround this year. As Jeffrey pointed out, Tucker Gleason and CJ Harris are both solid quarterbacks. I honestly would give the edge to CJ. He is a more solid dual threat quarterback who's looking for a breakout moment to prove how good he is. The QB on either team will be the key to this game because of the fact that they're dual threat quarterbacks. Toledo has a decent offense, but will need to play to near perfection, if not absolute perfection, to be able to beat Ohio. The offense for Toledo has 407 yards per game, whereas the defense gives up almost 340 yards per game. Ohio won their MAC division the way Ohio State would have won their Big Ten division. They're very balanced on offense and defense. The offense produces just about as much yards as the defense gives up, but in my opinion, the offense is still better than the defense. Toledo will have to balance the offense to wear down the Ohio defense. The Ohio D has been known to give up a lot of yards and a lot of points. So therefore, with it being in the dome, both teams giving up a lot of points usually, production being equal, I see Ohio snatching this one 44-41. That being said, our next one that we jump to, gentlemen, is the Mountain West. Between 8-4 overall, 7-1 in the conference, Fresno State Bulldogs, and 9-3 overall, 8-0 in the conference, Boise State Broncos. Now, here's a fun fact. In week 3, Jake Haener at USC suffered a fracture 1 centimeter to 1.5 centimeters in his, pardon my inability to understand medical terms and how to properly pronounce them, melanomalonomanosis, which is basically layman's term for a broken ankle. And the ligaments torn on the lateral side of the ankle. He returned in half of the time that was projected for him to be out. He was projected, I think, 10 to 12 weeks, so basically a whole season. But he managed to come back for San Diego State. Jeffrey?
That's a very good fun fact there. I wouldn't have pronounced that any better. Probably a lot worse. So you did pretty good, man. But this game is very solid. I mean, this is one of those games where, like, if you're a true college football fan, you're going to watch this game. You're at least going to check it out. You know what I'm saying? It's a really solid game. Fresno State, it has a lot of intrigue because it all comes down to Jake Haener. Because when they played the first time around, he was not available because he was hurt, with the exact terminology as Buckeye Mike has told us. And Boise State beat him pretty handily. So now Jake Haener's returned, and he's playing well. He's playing like his old self. Jake Haener's a fantastic quarterback. What we said about Frank Harris being underrated, Jake Haener's even more underrated. Jake Haener is fantastic. He is a fantastic quarterback, and that's why Fresno State is a good team, because of him. I mean, I'm not saying that he's the team. They got other players that are solid, but he is so good. If you had a Spencer Petras on Fresno State, they would stink. They would be bad. I mean, he is a fantastic quarterback, and I think that that's going to cause Boise State some issues because Boise State has a good defense. Like, their defense is really, really good, but Jake Haener is going to be able to put up points on them. The question is it going to be enough? Are they going to be able to go to the Blue Field in December with super cold weather? It's not California. You're not going to be in California. You're going to be in Boise, Idaho. Fresno State, I'm not saying they're unable to play in cold weather. That's not true, but it's going to be tough. And I think Fresno State, they're going to want to win this game really bad. Jake Haener's going to want to win this game really badly. But I think Boise State, I think their offense is going to be able to run the ball. enough in this game. Their quarterback, Taylor Green, he's a very solid dual threat quarterback. He can run, he can throw. I think that the cold weather benefits teams that run more. I think that Boise State's going to find a way to stop Jake Haener enough because Boise State has a great defense. And I'm going Boise State Broncos to beat the Fresno State Bulldogs 31-28.
Ever since Boise State got their act together on offense after that loss to UTEP, and ever since they've had Taylor Green as their starting quarterback, they have been 7-1 with him as the starting quarterback. And I'm just going to tell you right now, folks, I would say it's going to be a Boise State 35-31 victory. And, Jake Haener is going to do a lot of great things, in the Mount West title game on Fox at 3 p.m. But it's just not going to be good enough because Taylor Green's going to throw that game-winning touchdown pass with 10 seconds left in the game. Hardcore analysis out of Buckeye Mike. There you go. Well, I'm a Bama fan and a Notre Dame fan, so
you can like more than one team. I like IU, UNC, and Alabama. So, what's your pick, Austin?
I think he said he went Boise.
Yeah, I agree with Jeffrey that this is a game that is really intriguing because Boise State's defense is phenomenal. Their defense is phenomenal, but Fresno State, like you said, Jake Haener is a really, really good quarterback. I think the biggest key to this game is, can Fresno State run the ball? Because this is going to be in cold weather. And when Fresno State runs the ball, they're a very good team and they're hard to beat. And Boise State, their offense worries me a little bit. But I believe that this game, Jake Haener, he's going to get that run game going. And I believe Fresno State wins 23-20. Low-scoring game, cold weather, Fresno State wins 23-20. Bulldogs.
You like Jake Haener too, don't you? Pretty good team, man. All right.
Yeah, I almost picked him because of Jake Haener, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough.
So I think you're the only one that might know this besides me because I'm about to say this. But
if they get that ball running, they're hard to beat.
Since Jake Haener has returned, he's had 300-plus pass yard games in four of the last 5. He's accounted for 15 total touchdowns, 13 passing touchdowns, and 2 rushing touchdowns. And he has thrown a touchdown in 26 straight games. With that being said, not even everything I've mentioned would make Will pick Fresno State. Will went Boise State. On top of that, Fresno State's offense, as I think everyone has kind of alluded to, is good on passing offense, but their run game is their key. It's where it's at because Haener can be kind of elusive, but their power comes from the running backs. Fresno's defense is overall solid. It's been known to give up a lot of points at times, but overall it's a good defensive unit. As Jeffrey said, or Jackson said, Taylor Green is a solid dual threat quarterback. He's solid all around. Boise's offense is good on both the passing attack and the run game, but their run game is also better than their passing game. It's what drives the offense. Boise's defense is solid on stopping the ball altogether. The defense is what has kept them in so many games this year. And on top of that, it's just so hard to win on that blue turf. So with that being said, I'm going to take Boise State 24-21.
Dun, 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 dun.
So now we're going to talk some Sun Belt, gentlemen.
The
So
Fun
playing
Belt.
for the Sun Belt, Fun Belt, where Billy Napier came from and thought, I can coach a Power 5 program.
Maybe.
Playing for the Sun Belt Championship. You made me laugh. I was trying to be serious.
Sorry, man.
You're good. Playing for the Sun Belt Championship is Coastal Carolina, which they're only playing for because of a regulation, because James Madison should technically be playing for the Sun Belt Championship. But James Madison has to wait till next year because of the transition from FCS to FBS. So Coastal comes in at 9-2 overall, 6-2 in the conference against the almighty smaller school from Alabama. No, I don't mean Auburn because they're even worse. Troy Trojans at 10-2 overall, 7-1 in the conference. On to you, Goat. What are your thoughts?
This game is very interesting and frustrating because off of that point about James Madison, yes, they should be in this game. The NCAA, if you're going to allow a program to transition from the FCS to the FBS and they have a great season, they should be allowed to play in the conference championship game. They should be allowed to make a bowl game, just like Bellarmine last year in basketball wasn't allowed to make the tournament. The NCAA, please fix that because I don't think that's right. If James Madison deserved to be in this game, and unfortunately for them, they don't because of very dumb rulings, but it is what it is. But Coastal Carolina, they've been a solid team all season, and they do deserve to be in this game to an extent as well. They've been solid all season, but the problem is quarterback Grayson McCall. He's injured, and he's more than likely not going to play in this game. And they just got blown out 47-7 to James Madison. Obviously, Grayson McCall doesn't play defense, but Coastal would have put up more than 7 points if he was playing. So Coastal Carolina's it's a struggling offense right now without him because they're two backup quarterbacks. Bryce Carpenter, he's just a runner. Jarrett Guest, he's just a thrower. Grayson McCall does both. So their offense is way worse without Grayson McCall. Troy's a good team, and they've had a great season. John Summerall's done a good job at head coach. They've had a really solid season. But if you look at their season, they've won a lot of games by like 4 points, by 3 points, by 1 point even. So that suggests to me that they might not be as good as the record suggests. They've just found ways to win. And again, there's nothing wrong with finding ways to win. That shows you're a mentally tough team. You got a good coach. You've got good players that you're able to pull out games like that. But Troy, they might not be as good as the record suggests, but to me, the difference in this game is Grayson McCall. If he was playing, I would pick Coastal, but since he's not, I'm picking Troy to beat Coastal 28-21. I think, unfortunately for Coastal, not having Grayson McCall is going to be enough for you to not win this game. Troy, they're a solid team. They found ways to win the season, and they're going to be able to win this game with a shorthanded Coastal team.
To your
Jackson.
point about Troy being a good team, Jeffrey, they rank eighth nationally in scoring defense, and they are 16th in the nation in total defense.
Mm-hmm.
Their senior linebacker, Carlton Marshall, I think that's how you pronounce the last name. My error on the pronunciations. He is the FBS all-time leader in tackles, as they headline a stingy run defense that allows just 3.29 yards per carry. With that being said, I am going to go with the Troy Trojans. Got to show that Bama love. It's going to be a Troy 28-24 victory. And we don't know what the status is on Grayson McCall. The status is doubtful on whether he plays in the Sun Belt title game. More likely, he will return in the bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
Although we don't know when that will be or where it will be exactly.
Gentlemen, not so fast. I'm going Coastal Carolina. I think, yes, I'm going Coastal Carolina. have we all forgotten how good of a team this is? I mean, Coastal Carolina, they are a very good team. Very good. And I get what you all are saying. Without their starting QB, you're thinking that this is going to be a detriment to them. I don't think it will. I think they're going to be poised and realize that, hey, we don't have our starting quarterback. They're going to rely on their run game. They're going to rely on their defense. And I think Troy thinks they're just going to roll over and beat them up. Troy thinks Coastal Carolina is just going to roll over and let them beat them up, and they're going to walk away with the Sun Belt. That's not how it's going to happen. Coastal Carolina is going to bring the fight to Troy. They're going to punch him in the mouth, and Troy's not going to know how to respond. And that's why I have Coastal Carolina 31, Troy 16. I think Coastal Carolina will do enough. I think they will get some turnovers early and set up the backup quarterback for Coastal Carolina in good field position, and they're going to score some touchdowns off of it. I got Coastal Carolina winning 31-16.
Well, from me and Will, not so fast, my friend. Will took Troy to win the game. As far as this game for me, like everyone has touched on, Grayson McCall is the key to this game for Coastal. Without McCall, as Jeffrey said, Coastal tends to struggle because they don't have a dual threat quarterback like Grayson McCall. Jared Guess, as Jeffrey says, not as good as Grayson. He's a one-dimensional type of quarterback. The defense for Coastal has been pretty solid. Few poor showings. The offense is spectacular with McCall. Just completely different without Grayson McCall. Props to Jamie Chadwell for overseeing such a great transition from FCS to FBS, as the play from both sides of the ball has been impressive during the move. It's accounted for, I believe it's 31 or 32 wins since the transition. As far as Troy, after losing to App State, they went on to win out on their schedule. Gunnar Watson, the quarterback for Troy, is a solid quarterback, has a slight turnover problem. And Troy leans a little more to the run, but still has a pass game. Just not up to par with the run game. To be more balanced, they need to work on creating the consistent balance between the two, because it seems like anymore to win a college football game, you have to have a balanced offense. The defense is outstanding for Troy, and it's helped Troy find ways to win this year. So with that being said, I want to know if Grayson would play in this game. I think along with the other Troy selections, I would go Coastal. There's just too much there. Yes, it's just one player, but he's a dual threat quarterback. It's just one player. I have to go with Troy on this, 31-25.
That's fair enough. I guess I believe in Coastal Carolina a little bit more than y'all do.
Off your point, Buckeye Mike, about Troy, again, Troy's defense is fantastic, and they have found ways to win off their defense. They've won 10-9 games. They've won 17-14 games. That's why they've won all their games, because their offense is okay. It's fine, but their defense is why they've won 10 games. And again, Grayson McCall, he's the offense. I mean, it's not like you're in Alabama where your backup quarterback's just as good almost. Unfortunately, he's too much for me. That's why I'm going with Troy.
Yeah, Troy, like ever since that Hail Mary pass was allowed against Appalachian State in game day, where game day was, they have not lost a game since then. They've gone on a 9-game winning streak, and they're like, boys, we're not going to let this happen again. And they haven't.
Here's the thing. Turnovers are the key in this game, because I feel as Coastal Carolina, they know that they do not have their dual threat quarterback in Grayson. Grayson. So their defense is going to try to force some turnovers and set their backup quarterback in a good position to score. And they got to score 7 points off those turnovers. Field goals in the red zone just won't cut it if they get it when they get to the red zone. But I think turnovers ultimately will be Troy's downfall, and that's what made me lean towards Coastal Carolina.
That makes sense. So now we get to, as I like to call, not that often, and a lot of people tend to sometimes call, it's time for the Power Six, the American Conference Championship, gentlemen. UCF Golden Knights, and Tulane Green Wave. I have some facts for everybody. Tulane comes into this game a 3.5-point favorite. The over-under for this game, for you bettors out there who shouldn't be betting because it's a waste of money, is 56.5. On the series, UCF leads the series 9-3 and has won the last 5. I'll try to run through the rest of this real quick, but UCF's offense scores almost 35 points a game and produces 486.5 yards per game. You can look up the rest of the stats to break that up. The defense only gives up 21.3 points per game and gives up 360.5 yards per game. UCF has produced 21 sacks, and that defense is overall aggressive. As far as Tulane, the offense scores almost 34.5 points per game and produces 416.1 yards per game. The defense gives up 19.8 points per game and gives up 336.8 yards per game. As far as the Tulane defense, is a fun fact, they're 13th in the FBS versus the pass. Their average allowed is 6 yards per attempt. And their offense has 7 different players with 20-plus receptions. With that being said, because I'm sure I've missed something, I can touch on it later unless y'all figure out what I have. On to you, Jeffrey.
Yeah, this game, I love the American Conference. You know what I'm saying? It's a great name, man, but technically every conference is an American conference. So, just to be frank. But again, American Conference Championship is going to be awesome. I mean, this is interesting because UCF has already gone and won at Tulane. And the thing is that according to somewhere I read, 2015 is the last time before that season that a team has won at the school that they play in the conference championship game twice. So since UCF already won at Tulane, the last 7 years this has not happened where UCF would win again in the conference championship game at the place they have to play again. So that does not bode well for UCF. Even though they beat them the first time, again, it's going to be very tough for them to do it again based on precedent, but it can be done. I mean, Gus Malzahn, I know a lot of people don't think he's a good coach. I think he's a good coach. I mean, he makes mistakes, but he's a solid coach. To me, the problem here for UCF, it kind of goes into the Grayson McCall thing with Coastal Carolina. John Rice Plumlee is more likely going to play, but he's been all over the place, in and out of the lineup. I mean, he's a great quarterback. He's a dual threat quarterback as well. He can run and he can throw, and he makes UCF's offense a lot better. Mikey Keene does not give you that. He's a solid quarterback, but he can't run like John Rice Plumlee can. So if John Rice Plumlee is playing in this game and then he gets hurt in the middle of it, or he's not playing at all, then UCF is more than likely toast. They don't have a chance because Mikey Keene, decent quarterback, but he's not going to probably be able to get the win. UCF, they have to have John Rice Plumlee at 100% the whole entire game to win. Tulane, they've had a great season, and everybody talks about the magnificent turnaround from being 2-10 last year, and that is true. It does need to be talked about, but Tulane was a good team last year. That unfortunately a hurricane happened that hurt their season last year, and they had tons of injuries. An unfathomable amount of injuries happened to Tulane, including Michael Pratt being banged up, the quarterback. Tulane was just, they got bit by the injury bug because at the beginning of the season, they almost beat Oklahoma last year. So they were a good team that just bad things went their way. So they've bounced back tremendously this season. They've played fantastic this season. They have the big win over Kansas State that Jackson said earlier in the season that no one watched because it was on ESPN Plus. But again, it did happen. They did beat Kansas State. Great win for Tulane. And they've played fantastic all season in the American Conference. They only have the one loss to UCF. I think they're going to avenge that loss, and they're going to beat UCF this time around 35-31. I think Tulane's going to get it done. It's going to be very close. If John Rice Plumlee, if I knew he was going to be healthy all game and that he was 100%, I would maybe pick UCF, but it's so tough to tell. So I'm going Green Wave.
Well, honestly, TCU's Tulane, excuse me, that. I can't speak today, can I? Tulane has a great defense. They are second in allowing total yards per game on defense. They're first in allowing passing yards per game in the American Athletic Conference. They're second in total yards per game on defense in the conference. They're first in allowing passing yards per game, but that points per game, they've only allowed 19.8 points per game, which is first in the American. And we don't know the status of John Rice Plumlee, so I'm gonna go with Tulane, and they're gonna win that little conference title, and it'll be the first time since 1998 that they've won a conference title of any kind.
Do we have a score?
Yeah, my final score is going to be Tulane 35, Central Florida 31.
Okay,
Hey,
so
man,
this
that
game
sounds
makes me.
good to me. That's my score.
What did you say, Jeffrey?
That's my score, man. It sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
This game makes me a little nervous because Tulane, they're coming off the high of beating Cincinnati to get to the American Championship game. They've got the hype. They're coming off, they beat Kansas State early in the year, like both Jackson and Jeffrey have mentioned. That's a great win for their program. And Kansas State, we'll see them in a bit. They're a very good team, so that's not to be taken lightly. Cincinnati's a very good team, and they beat them. But I worry about Tulane that they might just overlook the fact that they're playing UCF, the team that beat them, and that's what worries me. But like you said, Jeffrey, John Rice Plumlee, if he doesn't play or he's in and out, that worries me for UCF, because their offense without him is non-existent. And if he does play, I think UCF can win. I know it's hard to beat a team twice, but at the end of the day, I think Tulane wins. Tulane wins in a shootout, 41-38. I think the Mean Green realized that, hey, we've had some great wins in the past, but our biggest ones in front of us, and if we beat UCF, we win the American. And I think they do that. And it's hard to beat a team twice.
Just kidding. I knew I was muted. Will took the Tulane Green Wave. But to all of you, granted, as Jeffrey started at the beginning, the key is John Rice Plumlee. But to all of you, not so fast, my friends.
Oh,
I'm going out on a little twig here to say UCF wins. And here's why. The reason I say Plumlee is the key, he's accounted for 2,195 yards, 13 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. On the ground, He has 848 yards and 11 touchdowns. He's a solid quarterback, versatile, dual threat. Speed is his difference maker. He's a vertical run threat instead of a horizontal run threat. RJ Harvey, the running back, I believe. No, receiver. He's an emerging wide receiver. 733 yards on the year, 5 touchdowns, and per catch yardage, he gets 6.8 yards per catch. Kobe Hudson, his production has gone way up. He's a versatile, complete. He leads a versatile, complete group of wide receivers. That great O-line is led by Matthew Lee, a really good lineman in theirs. And did everybody forget the big name running back? The bruiser, Isaiah Bowser
The
for
Northwest
UCF.
transfer.
Now, as far as their defense, Morris Brash is the leading person on their defense. He has 12 tackles for loss and 6 sacks. Linebacker Jason Johnson has a team leading 114 tackles and 4 tackles for loss. Overall, the defense is aggressive. I think I said that before. The secondary holds oppositional completion percentages from the quarterbacks to a best 58.4 completion percentage, and only allows 6.5 yards per attempt. Safety David Wilson has 3 interceptions. Cornerback Corey Thornton has 7 pass breakups. And the defense has found ways to win even when giving up a lot of yards. Their key is to establish the run game and get off the field on 3rd down. As far as Tulane, Michael Pratt has 2,729 total yards, accounted for 21 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions, 9 rushing touchdowns. He's a sophisticated runner, yet he's inconsistent. Tajee Spears has 1,177 rush yards on 14 touchdowns, which is averaging 6.7 yards per play. Deuce and Shea Watts are 2 of their speed wide receivers. The O-line doesn't stack up to UCF in run block. Pass block, yes. It is a balanced offense, though. And lastly, on their defense, linebacker Dorian Williams has 104 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and 2 interceptions on the year. Linebacker Nick Anderson has 100 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, and 2 fumbles. The Green Wave defense has 18 sacks, which is where it comes in that, yes, maybe if Plumlee doesn't play, that's where Green Wave can take over because they have so many sacks. They know how to rush and get to the quarterback and collapse the pocket. That defensive line production, though, is lacking. It's allowed an average of 336 yards. The defense not good against the pass, but better against the run. Overall, it still needs improvement. Both have sound defenses, and the key for Tulane is to find big plays in the pass game and to feed Tajee Spears. With that being said, my pick, even after all the praise I just gave Tulane, like I said, is Keon Plumlee playing. If he doesn't play, I'll go Tulane, but to put it in as a final, I'm going UCF 31, Tulane 24. So I guess that makes me the only one to not take Tulane.
Mason,
Probably would have picked UCF if I knew that
Plumlee wasn't questionable.
I mean, even if he plays, is he going to be up to snuff? Is he going to be the way he was but pre-injury? That's the thing. It's so tough with this stuff. It's so tough.
Malzahn's kind of weird in games, where it's like, one week he's beating up on Tulane, one week they're beating up on Cincinnati. And then next week, they're off losing to Navy. And, they almost blew it against South Florida last Saturday. So I was like, that kind of inconsistency was enough for me to go with Tulane.
I will say, last point before we move on about the Navy loss. They lost that game because of the fact Navy just kept the ball away from them. UCF is a up-tempo offense, and when you keep an up-tempo offense on the sideline, it just throws them completely off, and that's why Navy was able to win. Just kept the ball away from them.
Keep that offense off. They can't do anything to you on the sideline.
Yeah, that's why one of the keys for Tulane was to get off field on third down. So now, gentlemen, we're going to talk some Atlantic Coast Conference Championship. We got North Kakalaki Tar Heels against the Clemson Taterheads, the Clemson Tigers. So Clemson is favored. But guess what? They're only favored by 7.5. So more or less, this tells me it's a toss-up. It's not leaning one way or the other. Not really. I mean, yes, they favored Clemson. The over/under is 63.5. The all-time series, Clemson leads 38-19-1. And Clemson has won the last 4 of these matchups. Just some quick facts for everybody. Clemson's offense only averages 34 points a game and only produces 406.3 yards per game. There's the individual talent on Clemson's offense reigns supreme. That's going to be a big key. DJ Doo-Doo Head. Yes, I know he's actually DJ Uyunglele.
Ukulele.
62% completion percentage. What's up with that? 2,511 yards, 22 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions. 545 rush yards to 7 rushing touchdowns. The defense gives up 21 points per game, 326.7 yards per game. They struggle versus talent in the pass game. North Carolina, the offense averages 37 points per game and produces 481 yards per game. The defense gives up 30 points per game and gives up 442.7 yards per game. With that being said, and me rambling for 3 minutes about stuff that most people probably don't care about, Jeffrey?
Yeah, as Gerald just points out here, I'll pick North Carolina in an upset. Clemson being out of the playoff pick might have them in a weird frame of mind. That's a great point. I mean, when you're a program like Clemson where I guess it's playoff or bust, it can be tough. But I do think Dabo Swinney is one of those guys that can get his team to play without it. But we'll see. The thing that's interesting about this game is because you talk about DJ Doo-Doo Head or DJ Ukulele or DJ Uyunglele, whatever you want to call
He's
it.
too inconsistent.
DJ is a guy, you know what I'm saying, where he's almost like a DJ in real life, where sometimes the music's good and sometimes it's not, depending on what kind of music you like, and he plays good at times. I mean, you saw the Wake Forest game, and obviously Wake Forest is not the greatest defensive team in the world. DJ lit it up, threw for 400-something yards, 5 touchdowns. He played great. And those numbers you threw out are good. 62% completion percentage, not bad. It's pretty good. 22 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, whatever, not bad. 7 rushing touchdowns. His numbers are fine. The problem is when he plays bad, he doesn't do anything. So when he just is in a funk, then Clemson you're not going to play good because you have to have a quarterback that's going to at least pass for 200 yards in a game to at least give yourself a chance to win. I mean, if DJ throws for 200 yards against not North Carolina, but South Carolina last week, they win. He threw for 99 yards. Clemson still put up 30. Somehow they put up 30 points with DJ only throwing for 99 yards. So all I
Keep
know
in
is
mind, North Carolina's defense is not very good either. That is something else to take into account. Go ahead. Sorry about that, Jeffrey. I just want to throw that out there for you.
you're good, Austin. I mean, I'm like Buck. I get the long spills, man. So I'm inching my way to that, you know. So like DJ, he played horrible last week. But to Austin's point, North Carolina's defense is bad. It's gotten a little bit better. And I stress tiny bit better since the beginning of the season when they gave up 61 to App State. They've gotten a little better. They're not giving up 61 to App State, but their defense is still pretty bad. And I think that's going to help DJ. I mean, all I know is a lot of people were calling for Cade Klubnik many times throughout the season, but Dabo's going to go with DJ. He's made that point, proven he's not going to change his mind. So DJ, if he can just throw for 200 yards, I think that Clemson's going to win this game because all Clemson has to do is just have an average offensive day. Because Clemson's defense, if it shows up to play, which is to Gerald's point, Clemson might not play as hard because they're out of the playoff picture. That is true. But if Clemson plays hard on defense, if they give it, like, as Buckeye might point out, the talent gap is still ridiculous. Clemson's way more talented than North Carolina. So if Clemson's defense can slow down Drake May, because Drake May is a fantastic quarterback. He was on my potential Heisman list a few weeks ago until North Carolina started to struggle on offense a little bit. But he's a great quarterback. They have a great offense. North Carolina's a great offensive team. But if Clemson's defense can just slow North Carolina down, keep this a relatively low 20 to 30, something around there, 25 to 30 point game, if it gets in the high 30s, I think North Carolina is going to win. But if Clemson's defense can slow down North Carolina on offense, and I think if DJ, if he's able to throw for 200 yards against North Carolina's defense, couple touchdowns, Clemson's going to be able to run the ball enough on that bad defense, and Clemson will win this game 31-28 over North Carolina. The only way that Clemson loses is if they don't show up to play because they are the better team, but I think Clemson will beat North Carolina 31-28. It stinks for me, my hometown state. I want to pick the upset. I want to go UNC, but you want to talk about DJ being inconsistent? North Carolina is an inconsistent team. Every time I've picked them this season, they lose. So I'm going Clemson. 31-28.
Do you gentlemen believe, before we get to Jackson, I'd like to add this. Do you gentlemen believe that Georgia Tech laid a blueprint on how to contain the North Carolina offense?
Yes.
Josh Downs dropped a game-winning touchdown pass, though.
Well, North Carolina State, I think, kind of drew a blueprint on how to beat NC too.
Because if you keep Drake May in the pocket, he just ain't comfortable back there.
Yeah.
And saw in the Georgia Tech game, he didn't look too well.
Yeah. But
that's why I'm saying it's going to come down to Clemson's defense if they show up to play. If Clemson just shows up to play, they can win this game. They just have to show up.
Oh, true. That's all they got to do, you know. But, yeah, Clemson's quarterback, DJ Ukulele, every time somebody talks about how awful he is, Clemson fans agree with whoever's talking about how awful the Clemson quarterback is. That's kind of sad, but that's true. And North Carolina's defense is just
air.
Yeah, Clemson fans have gotten a little spoiled because they had Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence winning them titles left and right, and now DJ comes in and
I don't think they miss Kelly Bryant too much though.
Yeah,
Taj Boyd before Deshaun Watson too.
Yeah. But I'm a little sick just thinking about how awful these teams are. Like,
the only thing is, like, I know it's a cop-out excuse. The only thing with NC State, for me, I think North Carolina being a lock was looking ahead to Clemson. I mean, yes, it's a cop-out because if that's the case, why wasn't Michigan looking ahead against Ohio State? Granted, I don't think Michigan was a lock, so maybe it's a bad example. LSU be a better example
Yeah.
last week.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
and you got to think too. Did North Carolina ever have a shot to make the playoffs? Let's be real about that.
If they had beat Notre
If
Dame,
they had beaten Georgia Tech and gave up a loss to NC State, then turn around and beat Clemson,
They had
like
had a
if that-
chance.
yes,
Slim.
some.
Slim. I mean, it would have been slim, but it would have been there.
Yeah, but like if North Carolina was unbeaten, now you're talking. I mean,
yeah, I don't think we'll see that.
Would we
I
have
think
had the
Jeffrey
Cincinnati
will die
situation all
before we
over
see that.
again? No respect thing
No.
coming, or
Carolina would have gotten in undefeated, like Jackson's saying. But here's the thing, though. This is what I'm talking about with the one loss. Real quick, you have like TCU. If they lose right now, there's a chance they don't make the playoffs. But see, North Carolina lost that game so long ago. There might have been a chance for them to rise up in the rankings to the point where they would have had a chance. I probably would have said they wouldn't have gotten in, even with these circumstances, but they would have had a chance. They'd be like 5th or 6th if they had a one out at the lowest. They would have had a shot because they lost to Notre Dame early.
Because if you think
it would
about
have
it,
come to a thing would the committee, would they Alabama and Ohio State, USC, did North Carolina even would fit anywhere in that group?
if they had not lost both games or just one game, North Carolina would probably be sitting at like 7 or 8.
Yes.
but had they beaten Notre
And
Dame,
here's the thing too. Sorry, Jackson. Here's the thing too. Even with sitting at 7 or 8, I don't know if Jeffrey uses this for his rankings, but they're playing Clemson this weekend for the ACC championship. Bama and Ohio State both are sitting at home.
Conference titles mean a lot.
Yeah, if North Carolina would have come into this week at like 7 or 8, and USC or TCU, most likely USC for them, loses and North Carolina wins, they would have the better resume between USC, Alabama, North Carolina, and Ohio State because they have the conference championship. Whereas, yes, USC played for it, but they lost. And Alabama, Ohio State didn't even play for it.
but
North Carolina would have had a slim chance. They would have shot up in the rankings. They would have had a slim chance, but it definitely was a chance. But they blew it.
Would Clemson have had a better chance though, just because they're Clemson?
Of course. Clemson, if they had a one out, they were in. Clemson would have jumped up probably to like 6 if they had beaten South Carolina. Then they would have beat North Carolina. Then they would have jumped up. They would have jumped Ohio State and Alabama easily, and they would just need one of those teams to lose. USC, it's the same scenario as Ohio State, really. But Clemson would have jumped Ohio State because they would have had the conference championship.
But in conclusion, the ACC title game will be a Clemson 28, North Carolina 24 victory for Clemson.
Yeah, this game here, I've got so many thoughts on. I'm just going to try to keep them to a minimum. So let's start with Clemson, the big bad Clemson Tigers. Coming off of a loss, they're a dangerous team coming off a loss. Because Louisville, we've experienced that firsthand. When they come off a loss, they play hungry. They're a different team. But the thing that concerns me this time around is, yes, to your point, Jeffrey, their defense is great. I will say the defense is great. What worries me is DJ and that offense because DJ went 9 of 28 against South Carolina. Only 99 yards. That's not acceptable. And the thing that gets me is they stop running the ball. When your quarterback doesn't have it and you're running the ball really well, why are you not running the ball? Because it's not like South Carolina's run defense is impenetrable. But the thing I will say is the biggest key for Clemson is if they can run the ball and make sure DJ's efficient, doesn't turn the ball over, because as we've said constantly, North Carolina's defense is awful. It's not good. And I think Clemson can take advantage of it. The talent level, is a big gap. But the one thing in favor of North Carolina, I will say, is their offense can score. Drake May, if he gets out on the edge and he gets the running, North Carolina can win this game. But I think Clemson's defense, Georgia Tech set the blueprint for it. I think Clemson gets sacks and gets some turnovers on Drake May. And I think Clemson wins this. I think Clemson wins it 27-10. I think Clemson has a big day. 27-10 Tigers win the ACC.
I think your point about Clemson abandoning the run is awesome to bring up because, like, if Clemson, it's like when you have a bad team that can't run or can't throw, and your quarterback's bad and you can't run the football. Clemson was running the ball well. Again, that's why they put up 30, even though DJ only threw for 99 yards against South Carolina. Why do they abandon the run, especially when you have a quarterback that is capable of running the ball? I would have just killed that read option, throw in a little triple option, man. Do something. If DJ is not throwing the ball well, either bring in K Klubnik or just run the ball. That's all you got to do. I agree with you 100%.
And I think that's going to be one of the reasons why. That's one of the biggest factors why I picked Clemson. Is I think they know they can run on North Carolina, and when they see that, hopefully they stick with it. That's why I say 27-10 Tigers.
Mm-hmm. It's all about Clemson just showing up to play, man. It's all about Clemson just showing up on defense and just playing like you're playing in a playoff game. That's it.
And like I said, the one thing for North Carolina that does save them is that they can play offense.
Mm-hmm.
So Will says, not so fast, my friend. For whatever reason, he's taking North Carolina. As far as this game,
yeah, if he was here, I would like him to explain that to me. What redeeming qualities does North Carolina have besides their offense? I'm sorry.
I might be able to get an idea of it. As far as Clemson, Will Shipley has 1,092 yards on the year, 14 touchdowns. Wide receiver Antonio Williams has 50 catches for 523 yards and 4 touchdowns. Their O-line at best is average. Jordan McFadden on their O-line is having a good year. As far as the offense for Clemson, the bumpy road overall, it's inconsistent. DJ's been down. Depth on their offense is becoming a problem. Good to great wide receiver core. Pass protection has declined over the year. The offense is not great in any area overall. Should not keep playing DJ. No clue why they still have confidence in him. As far as the defense struggles versus a talented passing game. They have a stacked O-line or D-line, between Miles Murphy, KJ Henry. They're good coming off the edge. Brian Brees and Tyler Davis figure to have big matchups. Linebacker Jeremiah Trotter has been elite in the middle. Safety R.J. Mickens is the best coverage defender that Clemson has. Nate Wiggins has 10 pass breakups. The Tigers' defense overall, to everybody's point, 11 interceptions, 36 sacks. The run defense has issues, unable to cover, giving up too many big plays. The D-line needs to become unleashed and just take over the game for Clemson. And I think that's part of where Will's maybe thinking. North Carolina's offense.
Real fast, Buckeye Mike. Do you think North Carolina will see that and say, okay, let's run the ball a little bit more? Do you guys think that they will realize that, maybe run the ball more and try to keep Dre May upright a little bit more? That way Clemson doesn't get his home as much?
They may. I mean, if they do have the ability to push them around, here's the thing. I don't want them to run like 3 run plays and just give up on the run if it doesn't go anywhere. They need to mix it in
again, this comment is basically essentially what I said. You're spot on, Gerald. If Clemson shows up to play, they'll win. I just have this feeling it means more to Carolina. It's like exactly what I said earlier. It's all about just Clemson showing up to play. They're the better team, but they just have to show up. If they don't show up and they don't care about this game, they will lose. But if they show up to play, if that defense shows up to play, they will win. It's all about that. You are 100% right, Gerald.
Because here's the thing. So North Carolina's offense, Drake May has a 68% completion percentage, 3,847 yards, 35 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. 35 touchdowns? Where we heard that before? Oh, yeah, C.J. Stroud. Same kind of story. They were good to great in the beginning and lackluster at the end of the season. As far as a rusher, he's got 629 rushing yards on the year and accounts for 6 rushing touchdowns. North Carolina is a running back by committee offense. Elijah Green has taken the lead role, though, so he's a key to watch out for in the game. Josh Downs has 83 catches this year for 929 yards and 11 touchdowns. The O-line's been quite poor despite improving. They've given up too many sacks and way too many negative plays. Real quick on the defense, Kamen Rucker is the best defensive lineman that they have. He's got 6 tackles for loss and 2.5 sacks on the year. Linebacker Cedric Gray has 131 tackles and 9 tackles for loss. They're 118th in pass defense. Their opposing completion percentage is 63.8%. They rank 123rd out of 131 teams in the FBS in sacks with 16 sacks. They're poor on the back end. They can't stop the run overall. No pass rush presence. Talented DBs, good individual players, but few and far between, though. The keys here is going to be to Clemson to establish the run game and pressure the interior with their defense. For North Carolina, it's going to be to clog the run lanes and make the running backs or anyone with the ball run east to west instead of north to south. And they need to make the most out of every possession. With that being said, I'm going to take it safe, and I'm going to go Clemson 35, North Carolina 24. So,
off your
now,
point about Josh Downs, though, real quick, when you said Josh Downs at 11 touchdown passes, I was going to say should have been 12, man. It should have been 12. He dropped an easy one in the Georgia Tech game. Game winner.
Oh, man.
Now we get into the nitty gritty. The SEC championship. This don't mean anything unless LSU wins this game. And come on, do we really think LSU's going to win? Don't answer that because y'all need to break it down for the chat. Do we really think LSU's going to win this game? Here's some interesting facts. Georgia's a 16-point favorite in this game. The over-under is 50.5. The series lead is LSU leads the series 18-13 with 1 tie, and they've won the last 2. I wonder why. Oh yeah, Joe Burrow was definitely one of them.
2
Georgia.
or
2 of them?
Yeah, because they played in 2018, and yeah, Joe Burrow also played that year, but they didn't have Joe Brady on the LSU coaching staff until 2019.
So Georgia's offense scores 38 points per game, produces 488.8 yards per game. The defense only gives up 11.3 points per game on average, and only gives up 270.6 yards per game. Now, LSU, on average, on the offense, scores 32.5 points per game and produces 433.7 yards per game. The defense gives up 21.5 5 points per game and 347.7 yards per game. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into these breakdowns, Jeffrey.
Yeah, this game right here would be a lot more interesting if LSU hadn't have lost to the most talented 5-7 team in the country, the Texas A&M Aggies. They blew it, completely blew it.
Yes.
We're going down this road again.
Yes, Texas A&M is the most talented 5-7 team in the country, based off of recruiting rankings.
Jeffrey, I don't think no one's arguing with you on that anymore.
So does that mean Nebraska is the best 3-9 team last year? I mean, if that's your argument, wouldn't that make Nebraska last year? And I'm not saying that as an Ohio State fan. I'm asking as a literal unbiased question because you would hear everybody across the country, mostly Ohio State fans or Big Ten fans, say Nebraska's the best 3-9 team. I mean, what? Texas A&M was 2 games better this year?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, man. Nebraska, yeah, I guess they probably are or were per se the most talented 3-9 team. I'm not saying like A&M's the best. I'm just saying they're the most talented 5-7 team.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's no other
Is the
5-7
SEC championship game not that interesting that we're talking about Nebraska and Texas A&M?
Well, no,
I'm gonna get to it.
He opened the door, so I was like, ooh, there's my chance to ask the question.
I'm gonna get to it. I'm just saying, Texas A&M, the most talented 5-7 team this year. They've got a lot of talent, poor record, and they were able to knock off the LSU Tigers and make this game irrelevant to basically what people were looking for. They want drama. If LSU was still floating around at number 5, it'd be like, whoa, LSU's going to get in with 2 losses, like if they win. So it definitely took the shine off this game. The committee made it even worse by ranking LSU 14th for that embarrassing loss to the most talented 5-7 team in the I would say in history, but no, not in history, just this year. But yes, LSU is a team that they've had a great season. And I know that people say it like Brian Kelly, if Will was here, he can't win a big game. He can't win a big game. I understand that's the argument, but it's like if you look at these two teams, yes, LSU has a lot of talent and they have, good coaching style, all that kind of stuff. But the problem is they don't have enough. You're going up against Georgia. And the thing is that Georgia, this isn't playing Missouri where, Georgia thinks they can sleepwalk over Missouri and then it's a close game and they almost lose. Georgia, they're going to look, LSU's ranked 14th. We're in the SEC championship game. They got 3 losses and they lost to 5-7 Texas A&M, but we still have to play hard to beat them. So Georgia's going to play hard. They're going to give it their all. They're going to try hard in this game. They're going to want to stay undefeated. They're going to want to keep their number 1 spot. Because even if they lose, they're in, obviously. But they're not going to want to lose this game.
Okay, I'm just curious about that, Jeffrey. Because if LSU happens to surprise them, does the committee look at that loss to Georgia like, oh, wait a minute, you were supposed to dominate LSU? Would they bump them down past Michigan or TCU if TCU wins out? Or Michigan at least? Not to get too far off, but
Georgia would drop, yes, if they lose. I mean, they're not going to stay number 1. That's why I'm saying they don't want to lose their number 1 spot. But they're not going to drop out of the playoff. I mean, they're in the playoff. That's why they have a 99.9999% chance to make the playoff because
how far would they drop, in your opinion?
Probably
if every single team won, then I would probably say they would drop at least to 3. TCU,
you don't think it'd be bad enough to drop them to 4?
Maybe USC. I mean, it depends on the loss. Like, if they get blown out, maybe, but I don't know.
If Georgia loses by 7, they probably drop to 2. As long as Michigan wins, Michigan would become number 1. If they lose by 10, they probably drop to 3 like they did last year. And if they lose by like 2 touchdowns or more, they'll drop to 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, Gerald. Gerald says Georgia won't lose it, but think about it. If Georgia lost, they would face a TCU maybe instead of an Ohio State maybe sneaking in.
But again, I think that Georgia's not going to want to lose their number one spot. You know, some people debating that Michigan should be number one. No, not until they lose.
Stupid.
If Georgia loses to LSU, then yes, they don't deserve to be number one. But they're probably going to show up to play. This isn't a Clemson thing. Clemson has nothing really to play for unless you count an ACC championship game. Go ahead, Austin.
I just, sorry for interrupting you. I just want to throw one more thing out there for you. So if Georgia wins a close game and then Michigan steamrolls, then would that be enough
No, because
to maybe
Purdue's not
possibly
that
bump
good.
Georgia down?
No. Georgia's not. Georgia has to lose to get bumped. I'm serious. That's not even a debate. Georgia, if they beat LSU by 1 and Michigan beats Purdue by 50, they're not moving that. They're just not going to move that. They're not going to move Georgia down.
At this point, a
That's
win
fair
is a
enough.
win. At this point, a win is a win. And before Jeffrey finishes up and we go to Jackson, I do want to point out that for LSU's offense, there's 2 technically, but 1 key thing to watch for, and it's probably going to be what determines if this is a blowout or if it's a close game. LSU has 2 freshman tackles on the offensive line. 2. And that defense is crazy stingy and powerful of getting through the line, getting to the quarterback. So it depends on how those freshman tackles will hold up. Essentially is what's going to determine, are we looking at a Georgia blowout or are we looking at a Georgia win by close?
It's a good point to bring up, Austin, but yeah, they're not moving. They're not moving down no matter what. Like I said, Georgia wants to keep that number 1 spot. They're not moving out of the playoff. And if they win, they're staying number 1. Depending on how they lose, they could drop to 3. 4's pushing it. They'd have to get blown out, but they would probably drop to 3. So Georgia's not going to want to lose that number 1 spot. LSU, they've proven that they're not there. I mean, they won at Arkansas by 3. And they should have lost if KJ Jefferson was healthy. And they lost to one of the best 5-7 teams in history. So LSU's not there. They're just not there at Georgia's level. They prove that they can win a game at home by 1 against a very bad Alabama team compared to what Alabama's been the last 10 years. Alabama's still elite. But compared to what they've been, they're down. LSU won by 1 on a 2-point conversion. So all I have to say is that if Georgia shows up to play, which they should because of the fact this is not a Clemson thing, they're going to win 31-21 over LSU. I think LSU is going to try to keep it respectable, and I think Georgia's maybe not going to run away with it because it's going to be like a Kentucky game where they're going to kind of just breeze by, but they're going to show up to play and they're going to win. So there's LSU. I would be more willing to maybe pick LSU if they hadn't lost to A&M because they would have had a chance to make the playoff. But since that chance is over, I don't think they have a chance at all. Anything's possible, but Georgia by 10.
The winner of Power 5 conferences get preference by New Year's Six bowl committees. If the ACC only gets 1 New Year's Six bid, likely so, and North Carolina wins, Clemson will get a lower tier bowl. It's something. Yeah.
That's why I thought maybe North Carolina will show up.
Yeah. And LSU, guess who is allowed the most sacks all year?
LSU.
And guess who's number 1 in the red zone on offense? Georgia. And guess who's got Brock Bowers? The Bulldogs. And it's going to be a 35-24 victory for the Georgia Bulldogs. They'll win their first SEC title since 2017. That'll be the second SEC title for Kirby Smart.
What's your score?
35-24, Georgia. Georgia's going to win that one.
Yeah, this game is honestly for Georgia. We all know what the incredible team that they had last year. It was arguably one of the best teams in college football. No, what am I saying? It was the best team in college football, and arguably the best team in college football history. It's how good they were. But my thing is we know what Georgia is. LSU, their defense comes and goes. Offense, their offense hinges on Jaden Daniels. And and in the Alabama game, he played a great game. And that's why I believe LSU won that game, is because he played a great game. So let me ask you guys here, and in the chat can get involved too. If Jaden Daniels has a performance like he did against Alabama, is there a potential for an LSU upset?
Oh yeah, for sure.
There is, but it doesn't. It's not going to matter.
But here's the thing: Georgia's better than Bama this year.
My thing is about this game is, as I kind of already touched on, I said that if LSU was still alive for the playoff, I would feel they'd have a better chance to win. When they lost to 5-7 A&M, they're not probably going to have the wherewithal and the mind to pull this off. I mean, you have to believe, man. You have to want something, and the desire is not there because they just lost. Their playoff chances are done. It'd be very hard for me to see an LSU to win after that.
But do you think the LSU offense?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say real fast. Do you guys think if LSU has any chance, Jaden Daniels is going to be the key to winning it?
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Because here's the thing. Here's the problem with Georgia. You can't run the ball on them.
Yeah.
Tennessee proved that. You can't run the ball on them at all. And it's essentially Hendon Hooker getting destroyed back there. Yeah. He couldn't do anything. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Jaden Daniels, to me, the only way you're going to be able to beat Georgia if you're LSU is if you had a quarterback like Bryce Young or something that can make unbelievable plays and can scramble and run all over the place. Jaden Daniels can run, but he's not like that guy either. He's not going to be like Caleb Williams and he's going to run 100 yards to get 30 on a play. Georgia's defense is going to make life hard for LSU. It's going to be so hard for them to do anything.
Yeah.
If Georgia plays to their eliteness, if they don't play like they did against Missouri and they play like they did against Tennessee, LSU has no chance because they're not even going to be able to do anything on offense.
James Scott says, for sure, Georgia's really good on the lines. Tough to keep them out of the red zone inside the 20. Exactly.
Because of Brock Bowers.
Yeah, and I think that's where Jaden Daniels, like when LSU, I want to see the biggest key for me is we know Georgia's offense, that they run the ball, and they get it third and manageable, second and manageable, and then Stetson Bennett just drops it off to Brock Bowers or to his elite wide receivers. What I want to see is when LSU's offense gets in the red zone, how do they handle it? Because against Texas A&M, when they got in the red zone, they didn't do much. And I think that's going to be the biggest key, because if LSU kicks field goals, they don't stand a chance. But if they could get touchdowns, we got us a game, fellas. And if they could get some turnovers, that's been my theme all night, turnovers. If LSU's defense can create turnovers, make Stetson Bennett feel the pressure, or maybe get a fumble or get a blocked field goal or a muff punt, and maybe turn the tide in their favor, and it gets 7, and who knows. But the thing for me is if LSU gets down early, it's essentially game over. They have to stay out in front of Georgia to have a chance. But with all that being said, I believe Georgia is the better team, and Georgia will win 31-29.
What?
I believe LSU is going to do a little. They deserve more credit than what you all are giving them. I feel like Georgia is going to sleepwalk through the first half, and LSU is going to be really close. but then Georgia's going to put some late drives together, chew the clock off, and then LSU is going to get maybe a garbage time touchdown.
That's kind of
Okay.
my point about Georgia having to show up. I mean, I know it's crazy to think that you have to show up, but this is literally what it comes down to. If Georgia shows up to play, this game's over. There's no chance. It's all Georgia. To me, it doesn't even matter. I know Jaden Daniels is the key, and he is the key for LSU. But it literally comes down to Georgia. If they play like they can and they're capable of, this game's over. LSU has to have a bad Georgia game. They just have to have a bad Georgia game.
LSU.
I think LSU deserves a little more credit than what y'all are giving them. That's why I still have Georgia winning. I'm with y'all there. I just think it's a lot closer than what the spread and what you are indicating.
Yeah. Let's see. Gerald says, I think Georgia wins by about the spread. So you
It's
think that's going to be
16.
an 18-point win because Georgia is a 17.5-point favorite in the SEC title game. Huh?
It's gone up.
Let's see. Yeah, but
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't mess those Bulldogs.
Where would you rank Jaden Daniels if he were still in the Pac-12 as a quarterback? I would probably put him about 6th. If you had, I mean, you got to put Bo Nix above him. Bo Nix,
Right.
Caleb Williams, Michael Penix.
Jeffrey, I've got
DTR.
Jaden Daniels at 7.
DTR.
Cam Rising.
Cam Rising's better. Yes, that's 5. Cameron Ward's inconsistent, but Jane Delores inconsistent. Yeah. The Oregon State quarterback's all right. Bengal Branson, but he's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, around 6 or 7 in there. Yeah.
Connor Johnson, I have him at number 7. I think Cam Rising's a little bit better.
And see, this is what James Scott pointed out. Remember Georgia coming out in the first game of the season to beat Oregon. I believe Georgia comes out of the tunnel with that energy. That's key. Again, if they come out like that, it's over. It's all about them, how they play. If they allow LSU to have a chance, it could be close. But Georgia, if they put their foot on the gas, it's over.
Well,
Here's my thing,
Put the
real fast. Do you believe if LSU wins the coin toss, they should take the ball first, or do you think they should get it the second half?
Take the ball first.
yeah.
Because you got to either stay ahead or keep right up with them. If you're down by 10 points or more at halftime, it's pointless. So you might as well look at the game as, okay, we're going to come out of halftime down and take the ball to begin the game if you win the coin toss, just to prevent that from happening. Or if it does still happen, try to make it like you're down by 3 points instead of 10 or more.
Or if you throw a pick 6 on the first play of the game, and then it's all over.
Yeah. Yeah, stupid Virginia quarterback. 2 pick sixes.
And here's another thing too. Do you think now I know you said Georgia, the consistency is Georgia's going to keep if they come out with the energy, it's all theirs. But if Georgia's offense has a bad game, but their defense is the one performing, does that change any opinions, or is it still Georgia wins?
I think it's still Georgia wins. I mean, I was going to go through that, but
LSU is going to have to put up points in this game. I mean, it can't be no 13 points like they did against Arkansas. They're going to have to put up points.
It can be that they put up 13 points, but I'll tell you right now, you're going to lose and get slaughtered with your head cut off.
That's what I'm saying. They're going to, if they want to win, they're going to have to score more than 13. That's what I mean. And there's no way.
Well, let's just say if Georgia beats LSU like they did Oregon, let's just say anybody that's got kids, do not have your kids in the room watching the SEC title game.
Well, my only thing is, because we've seen this story a couple times. We've seen this story a couple times where we think another team's going to slaughter another team, and then it turns out it's like, oh, okay, LSU came to play today. And then you look up, it's 13-10 Georgia with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and you're like, what did I miss?
I mean, there's always that chance, but as I'm trying to get to, LSU's defense just doesn't stack up in their favor against Georgia. Georgia has too high powered of an offense. And I mean, if you look at the stats alone, Georgia's offense gives up 38 or produces 38 points a game. LSU's defense gives up 21. So right there, you're already at a 17-point disadvantage. LSU has to show up. That's the key. For LSU to even win or make it close, LSU has to show up.
Yeah.
So
Everybody's unanimous in Georgia.
yes. Let me run through and break it down for you. Bennett has 3,151 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Now, here is what Austin was getting at, because he's occasionally flat. So if you can make him inconsistent and flat and make them one-dimensional on the run game, because they do use the running back by committee approach. So if you can put the focus on there and make Bennett inconsistent, LSU really has a chance. But then again, like I said, the LSU defense really has to step up. UGA averages 5.5 yards per carry. McIntosh has 654 yards on the year, 437 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns. Bowers and McConkey combine for 46 receptions each and 600 plus total yards. Roderick Jones is the key player on the offensive line because he leads a physical O-line. For Georgia, run the ball is the key. Run down their throats. Utilize the tight ends and wide receivers. Have O-line dominance. Open gaping holes. Control the lines of scrimmage. Eat the clock. Have long runs. Balance the run game with the pass game. Just win and have balance. Now on their defense, Jalen Carter is an elite mover on the interior D-line. Nazir Stackhouse is an impressive linebacker duo on Dumos Johnson. Moden Keel Ringo, inconsistent at center. Malachi Starks is having a strong freshman campaign. Their defense is giving up 5.7 yards per attempt, which is 5th in the FBS, and their secondary was elite versus Tennessee. On the offense for LSU, Jaden Daniels, 3,390 total yards, 26 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and that I believe is the total touchdowns because he has 15 passing touchdowns to the 2 interceptions. The problem with LSU, the backfield is hobbled. Kane and Emery are likely to carry the load on touches. Neighbors and about most notable in the deep wide receiver core. That's the one thing that'll help them there. They do have a deep wide receiver depth chart. It's a struggle fest for them on O-line. Daniel's legs has carried the offense. If JD's mobility isn't 100%, this could get ugly. LSU has to take advantage of the one-on-ones. Third down conversion is key, and they need to have a strong and balanced offense. On their defense, real quick, Perkins has 60 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks. Micah Baskerville has 75 tackles. Greg Penn has 65. Mekhi Wingo leads a deep D-line with run stop abilities, allowed 200 plus rush yards in only 4 games this year. They are 15th in the entire FBS in opponent completion percentage at 55.1%. And Bernard Converse is the best cover corner in the country. With that being said, Will takes UGA. And real quick, the two keys, LSU needs to protect up front and be tough against the run. UGA needs to hold up in man coverage and contain Jaden Daniels. That's all that blabbing comes down to. I'm going to take Georgia 35-20. So now we go over to the Big Ten championship. Nope. Stop there because it doesn't mean anything. Purdue wins, cool. They'll go to the Rose Bowl. Michigan's still a lock, so it doesn't mean anything per se. That being said, it's Michigan versus Purdue. Michigan, at the time of taking these notes, was 17.5-point favorites. The over-under was 51.5. Michigan leads the series 45-14. That's a little lopsided. And Michigan has won the last 4 against Purdue. Michigan's offense produces 39, almost 40 points a game, 459 yards per game. The defense only gives up 12.6 points per game and 261.2 yards per game. Their run defense is number 2 in the country. They only give up 84.3 rush yards per game. As far as Purdue, they average 28.5 points per game, 406.5 yards per game. Defense gives up 23 points per game and only gives up 347 yards per game. So with that being said, and I've blabbered on for 5 minutes long enough, Jeffrey?
Yeah, this game right here is like the Big Ten and the SEC championship games. They're both just, unfortunately, just basically irrelevant. They're not irrelevant, obviously, because they're big games, but unfortunately, they don't do anything for anybody's, playoff picture. Because, like Buckeye Mike said, Michigan's a lock no matter what. And I mean, plus they lost maybe by 50, but they're not going to lose by 50. So Michigan's good. But the thing is about Purdue.
That's interesting. That's interesting, Jeffrey, that you consider Michigan a lock. Because there's been some people saying that they lose to Purdue, that could be enough to keep them out.
How?
Well,
they're at
the
number
math
2.
is not there. You got to imagine, Austin, because think about it. If they lose to Purdue and TCU and USC wins, they'll drop to 4, and Ohio State's 5th, and Michigan has the head-to-head.
So they'll still be in.
I mean, if they lost by 50,
I'm just curious.
If they lost by 50 to Purdue, I mean, you can maybe make an argument, but Michigan's not going to lose by 50 to Purdue.
But they don't even have to lose by 50, though. If they lose by 4 or 5 touchdowns, that's more than how much they beat Ohio State by. So that, I think, would be the point to where if they lose, the other 2 win behind them, they may put Ohio State in over Michigan because they lost by more than they did beat Ohio State.
But I think Michigan's roughly a lock because it's the math's not there.
So let me ask you guys, then why does the committee still put doubt in them? Is it because they're non-conference? The committee still puts a little doubt in them.
Well, see, the doubt doesn't really come from, sorry to take your time, Jeffrey, but the doubt doesn't necessarily come from, like, if they lose, how far would they drop? The doubt comes from, do they deserve to be number 1? Because their non-conference doesn't stack up with Georgia's. Georgia's non-conference is better based alone on the fact that they played a Power 5 school. And Michigan played nothing but cupcake group of 5 schools. Now, yeah, Ohio State did too, but Ohio State is Georgia's resume.
James Scott says those people saying Michigan would be out are either Wolverine haters or they are looking for Klitz retweets. And Michael Hogg says Michigan is a lot to make the college football playoff. And Gerald says Michigan wins, but closer than expected. They have a bit of a distraction with Maisie Smith appearing in court today. That and Blake Corum's knee injury keeping him out for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's another big piece.
That is a
Yep.
good point on Quorum, and that also is a good point on how I love what you said, Buck. I'm like about how if it was Ohio State, it'd be all over the media. So that's a good one right there. You just float that thing under the bus. We let him play for a couple, but now we're gonna get him in trouble. Okay, let's let him play the season. I like that. That's funny. But I will say about this game though, no one's talking about Purdue's quarterback Aiden O'Connell and his family. And unfortunately, the sad passing of his brother is horrible, and that's going to affect him. So we don't know. He could go out there and just light it up, in memory of his brother, or he could struggle because it's in his mind, and I wouldn't blame him. So there are storylines both ways, but again, the whole Michigan not making the playoff thing, again, I think they're good as long as they don't lose by 50. I think they're good. They're not going to drop below Ohio State because they have the head-to-head. So I think that Michigan is going to struggle a little bit in this game because of the fact they're going to think it's going to be an easy cakewalk, and Purdue is going to be able to score some points. But Purdue this season's been a decent team, but they've been a bit inconsistent. I've had some games this year they've just looked awful, and then they've had some decent games. So it all depends on how they play. If they have one of their better performances, like the Penn State game in Week 1, then this might be a closer game. But if they play like they've had in some games where they've just struggled really badly, I think that they'll
Syracuse
get
is
blown
a good
out.
example of that in the Dome.
Wisconsin, there's another one.
The Wisconsin one was the worst. I will say, at least in the Syracuse game, you can make an argument they should have won. There were some bad calls. And as Michael puts out, Iowa was a pathetic game for Purdue as well. Iowa and Wisconsin, those were horrible. But I will say that I think that Purdue will play decent in this game, and I think they're going to relatively keep it close. But I think Michigan's going to win 35-21 over Purdue. I think Michigan will struggle a little bit because they're going to think it's going to be super easy. But I think that Michigan, at the end of the day, their goal to achieve still being undefeated is not going to be too tough for them. And I think Michigan's going to win 35-21.
Gerald says, I wonder if O'Connell missed any practice time. It would certainly be understandable.
Yes, it would. It's sad with the passing of his brother. I hate it.
I want to see him have like a Brett Favre game. Like Brett Favre did in 2003 on Monday Night Football against the Raiders. That was an awesome game right there. Now, here's something that I don't think anybody really knows. Some of us might know. But what's Jeff Brohm's record against top 3 teams since he's been head coach at Purdue?
3-0.
3-0, baby.
3-0. And Ohio State has been one of those teams. Sorry, Buckeye Mike, but it's true.
The 2018 Buckeyes and the 2021 Michigan State Spartans and the Iowa Hawkeyes. After hearing those little storylines, I want it to be 4-0. I really do. But, Michigan's going to be really good, man. I mean, they're going to be winning it. It's going to be closer than the experts have it, but they will get the job done with a 28-17 victory.
I will say before you go, Austin, just real quick, I will say about the Purdue wins, though, over the top teams. One of them was the Ohio State game, obviously. And Rondell Moore played out of his mind. I mean, that was like before Rondell Moore had the injury bug. Rondell Moore, before the injury bug, he was a cheat code, man. That guy was just all over the place. He was like 99 speed on Madden. It was over. It's to the end zone. So, again, Rondell Moore, that was the reason they won that game. And then what about when they beat Iowa? Remember, Iowa was ranked number 2 last year.
Yeah.
Okay, Iowa was ranked number 2. No. So good win, but Iowa was not the number 2 team. So that's a little bit skewed a little bit, but still, Brom's done a good job, playing spoiler maker. But yeah, they're not going to do it this time, I don't think.
Yeah, wrong. Syracuse, Purdue shot themselves in the foot with penalties at the end of the game. Purdue's going to play spoiler makers. You do know that Brom is 3-0 against top 5 teams as an unranked team. Yep.
Well, that's why I said I know you're kind of like saying Purdue shot themselves in the foot. Yes, they did, but the penalties were kind of questionable. That's all I was saying. Purdue, they maybe shouldn't have been called, and maybe Purdue still would have won that game.
Yeah. As for O'Connell, he did miss some practice time earlier in the week. And I think with Edwards, this is from Michael Hogg, I think with Edwards having the cast on his arm might be an issue.
Before Austin goes, I have a question to pose to you guys. And I do realize that the question doesn't really mean anything because Michigan's not likely to win it all anyway. But with the Maisie Smith incident and Harbaugh, yes, Jim Harbaugh, I know you're not watching, but if you are a bleeping hypocrite, and you know what I'm talking about with bleeping, you hypocrite. As far as that goes, if by the grace of God, Michigan happens to overpower Georgia in the national championship, because that's what it's going to come down to, and they win the whole bleeping thing.
No respect for TCU and USC.
I'm trying to get to the question, and me laying it out.
Roadrunners will win it all.
Question. So if they would happen to win it all, if the Maisie Smith situation, which by the way won't even start in court until after Michigan's football season is over, because the guy representing Maisie Smith is a Michigan fan and a Michigan grad. But if it goes to the finalization and he is determined to be guilty, do you guys think that that's something worthy enough of stripping Michigan of all their wins after October 7th? Just as a question, not like I'm hoping for it, because I don't hope for it. I mean,
do we punish the other teammates for one teammate's actions? That's what I'm curious about. Because I'm kind of torn about it. Because I'm not too crazy about this Smith fella, but at the same time, it's like, is it everyone else's fault that this guy was doing stuff that he shouldn't have been doing?
It's not necessarily. I'm not saying it's everyone else's fault. I'm saying what I'm saying is it goes back to the part of Jim Harbaugh being a hypocrite, because after the Michigan State incident, they all wanted them charged, or he wanted them all charged and off the team and everything. But yet he has a felon, because for whatever reason, the state of Michigan, what he did is considered a felony. So he wants to have a felon on his team and play, but yet when his guys get jumped, he's all gung-ho about charge them, send them to jail, send them to prison, let them get done by big old grumpy men in the showers.
Ooh. Whoa. Did we cross the line? Are we gonna get banned now? Are we demonetized? Wait, we're not monetized. Ooh.
I'm just saying.
Oh no.
In case Will gets his attention on this and it comes back and he needs to have a conversation with me, I'm sorry, Will. I admit that I may have taken it too far, and I do apologize. And I do apologize, chat. I'm just trying to make fun of, but ask a legit question
I
of
thought
the situation.
You went too far when you said bleeping, man. That's meat.
Meep. I'm saying the charge that he was given in the state of Michigan is a felony charge. Yes, I'm not saying he's a felon. Innocent until proven guilty all the way.
Habeas corpus, baby.
But back to the game, gentlemen. let's leave all that behind.
Yeah, we've
Back
gone
to the
off the
game.
rails. We've gone off the rails, man. If you get the pun here.
Now,
Okay,
for my
Austin.
prediction.
Purdue.
So Purdue has the advantage of I will say Michigan, they proved me wrong when they couldn't run the ball and McNamara made the throws. Yes, granted the receivers were wide open. I'm not saying he's Tom Brady or he's Aaron Rodgers with it, but he did make the throws, and people always criticize him, says you can't make the throws. Well, he made the throws against Ohio State because when that run game got stopped, people, including myself, were like, "Oh, Ohio State could be in to whip them today." But Michigan proved that they can hang without a run game, and I know Purdue fans think that they can just stack the box, no Blake Corum, and they're going to do what Ohio State tried to, and I don't think that's going to happen. But I will say the one thing that Michigan, they may overlook Purdue because they're riding off a high of beating Ohio State for the first time since 2000 in Columbus. This is a big monumental moment for them, and I think that Purdue can maybe catch them sleeping because Michigan's riding on a high. Do I think that's enough to give Purdue the win? No, I think Michigan wins 23-16. I think it's low scoring. I think Purdue takes them down to the wire, but Michigan's defense makes a play at the end. I'm going Wolverines 23-16.
All right.
I think it's funny you bring up Tom Brady, Austin, and it's like Tom Brady wasn't even Tom Brady at Michigan. Okay, that was some other guy. Okay, he was a 6th-round draft pick, number 199. The guy got a lot better when he had Bill Belichick and Drew Bledsoe was out of the picture, and that guy emerged. Tom Brady, like, I love it. It's like, it makes me laugh so hard. Michigan fan will be like, Tom Brady, he came out of Michigan. It's like, dude, the guy wasn't even Tom Brady at Michigan. The Tom Brady we know and love today was not the same guy at Michigan.
Or know and love to hate.
Yeah, I was trying to be nice to the guy. Some people hate it. I don't dislike him. I mean, sometimes he gets on my nerves, but I like him all right.
But here's
Anyway.
another key thing that I wonder. Can Purdue's offense keep up with Michigan? If Michigan's offense is clicking, can Purdue's offense keep up?
I think I was going to get to that.
What do you think, Jackson? Jeffrey, do you think Purdue's offense can keep up? If Michigan's offense is hitting on all cylinders?
Yeah, I mean, that's my thing about Purdue. Is like they have to play good on offense to win. You're right. I mean, it's a given. But their offense has been kind of bad at times this season. Like Aiden O'Connell's had bad games. He's had some good games. Pre-injury, he was better. He struggled a bit since the injury, and obviously with what's going on with his personal life and everything, it's sad and all. I don't know. I mean, you got stuff with Michigan. There's just some interesting stuff going on, but I just think Michigan's defense is gonna slow down Purdue, and I think that Purdue is gonna keep it relatively close. But I think Michigan's gonna, and Michael Hogue points out, and don't sleep on Mockabee either. He's gonna have a big game Saturday. Yeah, Maccabee's really good, but it's a lot easier to run on Indiana than it is on Michigan, even with a big bat like Mockabee.
Everybody's taking
And we know Michigan, when their offense is on, they can score with anybody. That we know that. It's just Purdue that worries me a little bit on offense.
But yeah, Purdue will definitely bring their A game against a top 2 opponent.
I'll try to.
I don't know. Jeff Brom tends to do that with them.
So, first of all, like I said, complete apologies. I took it way off the rails. Enough of that, though. As far as this game goes, yes, we all have Michigan. Will has Michigan. As much as it pains me, I have Michigan. And here's here's the layout of why I think it is. Corum's out. He had 2 touches against Ohio State, so he's a non-factor. For Michigan's offense, Cornelius Johnson, he had 160 yards and 2 deep bomb touchdowns against Ohio State. Bell will also get more involved downfield. The O-line, the entire offensive line, is a semifinalist for the Joe Moore Award, which is the best offensive line in the country. They had 4 plays of 60-plus yards against Ohio State, 5 of 40-plus. J.J. McCarthy in that game alone didn't look very good, but he hit the passes that mattered, 12 of 24, 263, and 3 touchdowns. The defense, Chris Jenkins, Mason Graham have been strong run defenders on the interior defensive line, and Maisie Smith is a force. Mike Morris has 11 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, and has been exceptional. They have a top 10 pass defense. They only give up 177.3 pass yards per game. Will Johnson, German Green, and DJ Turner are their big defensive leaders. You need to force Purdue to be one-dimensional, dependent on pass or run, keep everything in front of you, prevent the deep ball, play clean, no or few penalties, and limit the big plays. For Purdue, Aiden O'Connell, 3,124 yards on the year, 22 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. He will be the key if Purdue can make it close or win the game because he understands the system. He knows how to rip it. He's an air raid QB, yet he is inconsistent because he does have 11 interceptions. But he is a great leader in the locker room. Charlie Jones for the year has 97 catches, 1,199 yards, and 12 touchdowns. Payne Durham and TJ Sheffield are other notable wide receivers. Devin Maccabee, a resurgence in the run game. He has 849 yards rushing on the year. Spencer Holstag leads an impressive offensive line. And Purdue has a deep wide receiver core, a huge pass attack, not strong enough run production. They have to keep pace and hold the line to have a chance against Michigan. They will want to run, but if a hole is created, if a hole as in a deficit is created, they will become pass happy just to try to catch up. On the defense, the veteran linebackers Jalen Graham and O.C. Brothers lead the charge. Creighton Jenkins, Jack Sullivan are the top pass rushers for them. They have a senior-filled secondary. Cam Allen and Kane have been elite, allowing 55% opponent completion percentage. They've forced 20 turnovers, so that is a key. That will be a big key. Pressure the quarterback, keep everything in front of you, load the box, slow the run. They don't match up well against the run. Minter makes correct adjustments to hold Purdue in the second half. That's another key for Michigan. Michigan overall just needs to play sound underneath coverage and be strong on the interior D-line, and Purdue needs to play keep away and force turnovers and send a nice, big, and long prayer to our Lord just to hope that you can win. With that being said, I take Michigan 42-24 in this game.
Gerald says, I was worried last year after Michigan beat Ohio State, taking Iowa for granted. I think Michigan will be okay. And Connor Johnson says, USC Utah very well could be the last competitive game of importance. Well, Connor Johnson, you're going to be happy to know that you say that game. That's for last.
And the last thing is J.J. McCarthy, if Purdue's going to win, cannot play like Tom Brady. Tom Brady, if he plays like Tom Brady today, no. It's over. It's over. It's over. Purdue's got no chance. Tom Brady, it's all about what Tom Brady, man. It's all about Tom Brady. J.J. McCarthy versus Tom Brady on the scale meter. But more than likely, Michigan's just going to do enough to win.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Michael Hogg. We're hoping for Purdue to keep it competitive, but we just think Michigan's got it rolling. And after that Ohio State win, coming off that big win, we just don't see Michigan losing it now. But here's an interesting thing. Now, Michigan, they snapped the record of beating Ohio State 22 years. 2000 was the last time they beat them. Here's my question to you guys. When's the last time Michigan went back-to-back as Big Ten champions? Have they ever done that?
I would say it was probably in the 90s.
It was in the 90s. Do you think that Michigan, would this be their biggest accomplishment yet to date, going back to back in terms of accolades and stuff they have?
Yeah, because they haven't reached the epitome of winning a national
It's
championship.
actually the
Yeah.
90s. Yeah, the 90s from Lloyd Carr, 1997 to 1998. That was the last time they won back-to-back in conference titles. But
Here's another interesting thing. Have we ever had a back-to-back Big Ten champion in a while?
It's been a while, but yeah.
yeah, Ohio State is.
Michael Hogue says, find out Saturday.
Wisconsin was 2011, 2012. Let's see. Oh, no, Michigan State won 2014.
Before there was an actual Big Ten championship game, Ohio State won like a bunch in a row.
Well, Ohio State, it was the fourth straight Big Ten champ, 2017 to 2020. So there's that. So that's, and Michigan could most definitely be the fourth team to win back-to-back conference titles in the Big Ten.
Michael Hogue says, find out Saturday night, and I have to say you're going to be on here, Jeffrey and Austin. If you are and Purdue does win, you're going to admit you were wrong, just like I will if I'm wrong about Purdue.
We all picked
Michael
Michigan.
Hogg, Sunday night, we do our recaps Sunday night. And Sunday night, if Purdue wins, we will all admit we were wrong. Me, Jackson, Jeffrey, Buckeye Mike, and Will if he decides to come along. Sunday night, we will do a recap of that game.
Maybe we can get Tom Brady on too. Maybe we can get Tom Brady on too.
Oh yeah, Buckeye Mike, no hard feelings.
We'll have to bring Drew Brees on and Tom Brady. You got
I would hold down my emotions just to, even though it'd be over the computer, just to meet Tom Brady, because I could then say, I met Tom Brady. How many people in the world have actually done that?
There you go.
Oh yeah, that'd be so
Big
cool.
Ten West has never won a Big Ten championship. I think that's right. Yes, that's right.
Yes, because when Wisconsin
team to end it thing.
Well, Wisconsin won the Big Ten
When it was-
championship when it was the Leaders
Leaders
division.
and Legends divisions. Yeah.
That was the worst ever, man.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
Leaders and Legends.
yeah,
They just didn't group them right.
yeah. I mean, like separate Wisconsin from Minnesota and Iowa, real dumb.
Leaders and
But we all
Legends
picked
laughed
Michigan.
out
No
loud.
spicy upsets.
Nope, but I
No
was
spicy upsets yet.
no, but I was tempted to pick a spicy upset.
Let's see if our next game we do is a spicy upset. Buckeye Mike, take it away.
All right, gentlemen. So our next game we're going to talk about, if I can get to it, we're talking Big 12 championship. There's a lot riding on the line here for the Horned Frogs. They win, they're in. If they lose, what happens then? Depends on how much they lose by. Do they get their doors blown off, or do they lose by 7 or less? Maybe even 10. They could still make it, maybe.
Now,
Anyway.
Get your popcorn ready, folks. This is going to be a good one. Kansas State TCU.
Real
This is
quick,
going to be a game to watch.
Gerald said the Big Ten East has to be the best division in college ball, in my opinion. That would be the SEC West.
It battles back and forth with the SEC West.
I agree.
Nine times out of 10, it is the
think about it.
West.
The SEC West, the worst team this year is the great 5-7 Texas A&M Aggies. The bottom of the Big Ten East, you've got Rutgers and Indiana. Indiana's better than Rutgers, but
wow,
Michigan State, not great. It's
not this year.
Not very good.
If you want to talk about this year, yes, give all the props to the SEC West. They are the best division, and Big Ten East is the second best. I mean, on a year-to-year basis, it's usually a battle for divisions between those two.
I don't disagree with that, but I will say the SEC West is the best most years. Most, for sure.
Okay. Big 12 championship. It's on Fox. I think it is.
No, it's on ABC, 11 a.m.
That's right. It's on ABC.
College there.
TCU is favored by 2.5. So they're saying it's either a toss-up or TCU will lose. The over-under, it doesn't surprise me for a Big 12 game. It's 61. The series is tied 8-8. Kansas State comes in 9-3, 7-2 in the conference. TCU, that Big 12 and goose egg, and 8 and goose egg in the conference. Kansas State averages 33.4 points a game, averages 421.5 yards per game. The defense for Kansas State gives up 19.4 points per game and 357.3 yards per game. Also, Kansas State is 58th in third down conversion percentage. They were 117th in the first meeting. So the third down percentage for Kansas State has improved. TCU's offense averages just a hair over 41 points per game and produces 473.3 yards per game. The defense gives up 24.5 points per game and 383.5 yards per game. They are 8th in opponent completion percentage at 53.7%. And I send it over to you, Jeffrey.
Man, this one, like, I don't even know what to say about this game because TCU, it's like you win, you're in. And we know that. If you lose, then it becomes a question of whether you're in or not. With USC, if you lose, you're out. With TCU, it's a question. So TCU really is the only game where if TCU doesn't win, it's still a question. They're not completely out depending on the result. And that just has me thinking, is TCU going to maybe not play as hard because they know that? I don't know. That sounds ridiculous to say, but I don't know. TCU, they're a really solid team. I mean, they are solid. They as Joey pointed out to me the other night, TCU has done way more with less. They don't have any 5-stars and are in the national title discussion. I know. I agree. I understand. I'm just saying that in most years, you have to win a title, you have to have elite talent, and TCU does not have that. So TCU has skated by and escaped in a lot of their games this season, and they have almost lost this chance of being able to be in the conversation. As Gerald points out, rooting for both TCU and USC as a Michigan, I don't want to even have the possibility of playing Ohio again. Want to keep those bragging rights. I'm rooting for TCU and USC too because I want new teams in the playoff. It'd be really cool.
Jeffrey, this is an important stat to point out. When TCU played Kansas State, Adrian Martinez, their starting quarterback, was knocked out of that game, and Kansas State had a 10-point lead, and TCU came back and won. Now that Martinez is healthy and going to play, let's see if TCU can beat them now.
Here's another good stat before you start up again, Jeffrey. Both TCU and USC are only predicted by 50% chance and 51% in favor of USC to win their conference. So they're looking at both, like Jeffrey has said over the last couple of weeks, at least the last week, they're looking at both of them to either lose or win close and make it a question of, do they deserve to be in?
Mm-hmm. That's why Ohio State's
another good
chance to
thing.
make.
Is Max Duggan a dark horse Heisman favorite?
He's not going to win the Heisman unless they won the title, and obviously in the Heisman before that. So, I don't think so. They're probably not going to give it to him. He's played well though, but they're not going to give it to him.
They could send him, because at this point, Caleb Williams, all he has to do is win Friday night, and he wins the Heisman. So they could send him, and it would probably be the top three of Caleb winning it all, CJ probably. Not that I care if he wins or not, but probably CJ, and then Max Duggan, because it's like, who else would you send?
Now you're saying, Austin, that Adrian Martinez is going to start.
I'm not saying he's going to, but now that he's healthy, and if that's not up to me to decide whether he's going to start or not. I'm just saying that possibility's out there. It's something to keep in mind. Kansas State was on a roll when he was in that TCU game, and then he gets knocked out, and then TCU comes back, and they've been on the Cinderella ride ever since. And we don't know when that Cinderella ride's going to be over.
That's a really good point. I mean, to me, that would give me less confidence in Kansas State if Adrian Martinez is playing, even though, as you pointed out, they were winning and then they lost. To me, Adrian Martinez is just really inconsistent. As said, is Martinez a big game quarterback, though? I mean, to me, he's just average with a lot of inconsistency. He has improved this year. I don't know. I mean, again, this game is so tough for me to pick, because I want TCU to win. I want them in the playoff. It'd be awesome. But can they do it? Can they go all the way? I don't know. I mean, they've escaped in so many games this year. I mean, that's my whole point. Like I said earlier, they've won, like they beat Baylor by 1. And again, it was at Baylor, but they could have lost that game. And then the Texas game, I mean, they scored 17 and they won because Texas's offense was nowhere to be found. TCU's won a lot of close games. They barely beat West Virginia. They had a chance to lose that game. So, I don't know. I mean, I think TCU, they've had a great season. They've no one thought they were going to do this. No one thought they were going to go undefeated in the regular season. No one thought they were going to have this type of season. And I hope TCU wins this game. When you point out Adrian Martinez, that gives me less confidence in Kansas State, because again, to me, he's very inconsistent. But I'm going to pick Kansas State to beat TCU 35-31.
Ooh, spicy.
And I don't love it, because I want TCU to win the game. But just something tells me they're going to drop this game by a very close margin, and then it's going to be up to the committee whether they put them in or not.
Wow.
And it's going to be very interesting. But I got Kansas State 35, TCU 31. I don't have a great gut feeling about it either way. I don't know if TCU is going to pull it off. I don't know if Kansas State is going to get it done. But that's my only quote unquote, I guess you would say, upset. I mean, I don't know if any other games I picked was an upset, but yes, that's my point as well, Gerald. I've said this before as well. If it's that close, Jerry, TCU would keep them in. Yes, they will. I agree. It will be in the committee's hands, but TCU will make the playoff with a close loss. I agree 100%. But I think they're going to lose close. It's going to be up to the committee, and I think they're going to get in. Even though, as again, this guy says, and the committee will break their hearts again. Yeah, we'll see. I think TCU
2014 all over again.
I think they would get in, but I'm picking K-State by 4.
It's only breaking their hearts again if they win the conference championship close and the committee says, well, we want brands in there, so you guys barely won. And if Ohio State had went to their conference championship, we know they would have slaughtered the other team because they're just that good. They just had a slip up against Michigan. That's the only way, and I'm not saying that's what it was, because I know we don't want to really focus on past games. I know that's not what it was, but I'm just saying that's the only way I could see them. Like, if the score was Jeffrey's score, that's the only way I could see them screwing over TCU.
Well, only guarantee about this game, regardless, is Kansas State's going to the Sugar Bowl. But that's the fun.
You're going K-State?
No.
What?
I say not so fast to you, Jeffrey. I'm going to go with TCU 42, Kansas State 27. So, I mean, TCU clinches a playoff berth. And Kansas State, win or lose, is in the Sugar Bowl waiting to get slaughtered by an SEC team, I guess.
That's a bad fate for Kansas State, man.
That's funny.
This game has given me – this was one of the hardest games I had to pick because Kansas State, they are a really good team. I know they haven't shown it all year, but they are a really good team. TCU, like you said, Jeffrey, they've survived and advanced, as the old saying goes. The Baylor game, we still don't know how they survived that game, but they did, and they're riding on. Max Duggan is arguably a dark horse for the Heisman, in my opinion. And like I said, last time they played TCU, they had to come back from 18 down, to correct myself, to win that game. So it was a larger deficit. But that was when Martinez went down, and then TCU came back. And they had to come back against Oklahoma State, which we found out what Oklahoma State was. But I believe this game is close, and I'm with Jackson. I think TCU wins this game. They know that the destiny is in their own hands. They're going to make sure it's not in the committee's hands. They're going to make sure that they win the conference and that the committee has no choice but to keep them in that playoff ranking. I got TCU 38, Kansas State 25. TCU wins in a 38-25 shootout. I think Max Duggan puts his name in the Heisman race with a good game. Maybe 4 touchdowns and a pick.
Am I the only one that's going to pick K-State here? And I want TCU to win. That's the thing. I do so bad, but...
So, Will took TCU.
Oh, no. Come on, Buckeye Mike.
Here's the thing. I would love to see TCU in the playoff. Same reason as Jeffrey. New blood. Maybe the game would be competitive. I just don't have faith in TCU. I don't have faith.
I'm so mad because I want them to win, but someone else picked K-State. Yes.
It's going to come down to like 3 games. Depending on who we pick for the Pac-12, it's going to come down to like 3 games of who's going to win this week and how many people are going to be tied where.
Is 38-25 considered a shootout in the Big 12?
No, that's considered a defensive struggle in the Big 12.
Nope. Now, let me try to run through this real quick. It's possible that K-State could run a 2-quarterback system to their advantage between Adrian Martinez and Will Howard. Will Howard has 13 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Deuce Vaughn 1,295 yards, 7 touchdowns, and on top of that, he has 40 receptions for 348 yards. He's dynamic back, he's got speed, and he's super explosive. Phillip Brooks and Malachi Knowles provide speed at wide receiver. That's the key, is speed against TCU. Cooper Beebe leads a strong left side on the offensive line at tackle. Kansas State, like I said, 58th and third down conversion percentage now was 117th the first time around. Their defense, how good can Eli Huggins be at anchoring the interior defense? Felix Uzama has 10 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks. Khalid Duke and Austin Moore have stepped up next to Daniel Breen at linebacker. The Wildcats' opponent completion percentage for their defense is 58.5%. And the Wildcats defense has created 15 interceptions. TCU, Max Duggan, 66% completion percentage, 3,070 yards, 34 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. You only hear stats like that at big schools like Bama, Ohio State, Oklahoma when they have a good enough quarterback. Keandre Miller has 1,260 yards, 16 touchdowns. He doesn't usually get enough touches, but he's an explosive running back for TCU. Quentin Johnston is hopeful to be healthy. I don't know if that status has changed. But on this season, he has 49 receptions for 764 yards. Tay Barber and Darius Davis also need to get heavily involved on the offense. The O-line is great. It's got impressiveness on the interior. The wide receiver core is so solid. The offense can spread the wealth. They're high-flying and high-scoring on offense. The defense is 62nd in the country on run defense. The defensive line hasn't been very productive. Linebacker Johnny Hodges has a team. Jamie Hodge, 65 tackles, 8 tackles for loss. Winters has 10.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. There's plenty of speed overall behind the defensive line in the secondary and in the linebacker core. Now, some key things. Kansas State needs to find big pass plays downfield to set up red zone and go with a hot hand at quarterback. As far as the defense, don't give up a lot of space. They have their moments. 24 total turnovers forced for Kansas State defense. They held up pretty well after the TCU collapse. They showed their dominance to close out the season. For TCU, contain the edge and run behind a strong interior offensive line. So the offensive line needs to create holes to run through the A gap and the B gap. The O-line is great. Size is impressive on the interior. The core is solid. I think I said that already. Let's see. Okay, on the defense, last thing for the TCU defense, they're 8th in opponent completion percentage, 53.7%. They allow plenty of big plays. They're not good enough on the pass rush. Their penetration from the defensive line itself is poor. There's not much production on the defense. They only have 4 sacks. They struggle on their defense from top to bottom. And if Will Howard plays for Kansas State, the defense will be torched. Expect a huge, huge day from Howard. That being said, I have Kansas State winning this game 42 to TCU 41.
Ooh.
You like old Chris Kleiman, don't you, man? He's a pretty good coach.
Here's an interesting question I propose to you. Sonny Dykes, win, lose, or draw this game, Is he right now currently to you the coach of the year? Win, lose, or draw?
I think it would be Tulane's coach. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, going from 2-10 to 10-2 and possibly 11-2, going from worst to first is coach of the year stuff right there, man.
And it's a group of 5 team.
Ooh.
Yeah, I agree, but I will say about that with the two. I did say it earlier that they had the hurricane last year, and then plus a lot of their players were hurt. So a lot of their players have returned from last year's team that were injured. So it is a remarkable turnaround, but Tulane was still a good team last year. If they hadn't had all those bad things go their way, they would not have been a 2-10 team last year.
Yeah, those guys have basically shook the dust off of 2021 off of them. So
I'm just saying because the team that Sonny Dykes took over at TCU was not a playoff team. Let's be real about that. And the fact that he is 12-0 and in playing for the Big 12 title game and a spot in the playoffs.
Well, the thing is,
I'm just saying that screams coach of the year to me.
Right, and I don't blame you for thinking that. I mean, he's probably a contender for it at least. But the thing is, yeah, they're 12-0, but if you look at their schedule and the results, they could easily be 7-5 or 5-7. But yes, I know they're not. They're 12-0. I respect them. It's just there's too many. It's 2021 Nebraska at 3-9 all over again. There's too many one possession games that they just happened to see what Nebraska did and just did the opposite. So they won all their games.
That's kind of what I was talking about with Troy, because Troy, they won all their games close, and that's why I feel they're not as good as their record. But again, with Coastal, with Grayson McCall being out, that's why, you got to go Troy for me. But yes, I mean, that's why I pick Kansas State, because TCU's been escaping all season. You just feel like they're eventually going to drop it.
Here's the thing, too, to be said. Alabama, people say that they can either be unbeaten right now or they could be a 4-loss team.
They could be a 5-loss team.
Same with TCU.
Mm-hmm.
Same with TCU. They're on a magic carpet ride, and who knows when it ends. Maybe they get lucky and they win it all the way to the national title game. Who knows?
Gerald says, when you guys finish with USC Utah, talk a little about the plus and minus of new playoff system in 2024, unless you plan a different show for that topic.
I could probably talk about that for 2 hours, 3 hours, man.
Yeah.
We'll make that a different show because we're almost.
I'm afraid you're gonna have to wait for different shows. Sorry, man, but we will get you that. We will get that video of where we discuss the plus and minuses and the pros and cons of the new playoff system. We promise you that.
Because we're already at 2.5 hours, it's probably going to take us a whole half an hour to run through the last game. With that being said, oh yeah, definitely. Especially me talking 5 minutes a mile. With that being said, let's do a little pre-deep dive of this deep dive, gentlemen. We got the Pac-12, a game that finally matters and means something.
Let's bring Tony and Tim in, because we're only talking about the Pac-12.
You're welcome, Pac-12 fans that are watching this.
We got the heavy hitter, the proven multinational champions in the past, the USC Trojans. Fight on! Against the defending Pac-12 champs that have proven themselves worthy because they're back here again, the Utah Utes.
Caleb Williams for Heisman. Fight on.
Oh, yeah.
When I took these notes, USC was a 3-point favorite. The over-under was 67 for for a Pac-12 game. 67. The series, USC owns the series. They lead 13-8. The USC explosive offense, because you can't call that just an offense. That's explosive right there. 42.5 points per game. And they put up 506.6 yards per game. That gets broken down into 184 rushing yards per game and 322.6 passing yards per game. The key with the defense, they get really beat up on the ground and they don't run very many blitzes. USC doesn't. They get QB pressure.
They
If
don't
they get
cover
QB
anybody
pressure,
either half the time. I said they don't cover anybody half the time either.
if they get QB pressure, they'll be in store for a great day and a great win. The Trojans D forces turnovers. They're fourth in the FBS with 26 turnovers. The defense allows 26.3 points per game and 405.3 yards per game. They gave up 562 yards in the first meeting. They're 110th nationally in pass defense, 30th in opposition red zone scoring percentage, and they mostly give up a lot of yards, but they've gotten better lately because of takeaways, but can also give up points. On Utah side, they average 39.4 points a game, 506.6 yards per game, which comes out to 220 rush yards per game and 247.7 pass yards per game. The defense allows 20.1 points per game, 317.5 yards per game. They've struggled heavily against Florida and UCLA. They surrendered an average of 7.6 yards per play in those games. They allowed 287 pass yards to Oregon. And the Utes had 4 sacks in the first meeting. With that being said, Jeffrey?
Yeah, this one for me is like the TCU game. It is pure toss up back and forth. My mind, I've flipped on it many times this week.
Now,
but my mind just keeps going back to Rice Eccles. This game is not at Rice Eccles.
I was about ready to say that.
And USC lost by 1 point at that building. And they questionable ending to that game. Very questionable ending. I mean, there's a couple of calls that Tony has let me know about 100 times when talking about USC that we should be undefeated right now. There's no way that game. So you want to say something?
Keep in mind too, Jeffrey. Yes, keep in mind, Jeffrey. Think about this. Utah went for 2, and they were at home at night in Rice Eccles. They needed a 2-point. They went for 2 and got it to beat USC. That just tells you the threat the Trojans posed to Utah. The fact that the home team went for 2, normally you see the road team doing that. The home team did it. That shows you how much of a threat the Trojans are.
Yeah, but
kind of like when. Go ahead.
I was just going to say they only went for 2 to seal the game, one way or another. You go for 2, and either USC wins that game because you failed the 2, or you win the game because you got the 2-point conversion. It was a Brian Kelly move against Alabama in overtime all over again. They were ready to go home one way or another, so they went for 2. They didn't play for overtime.
Yeah, I mean, and that's my whole point, though, thinking about this game is I'm just looking at that Utah. Go ahead, Austin.
I was just going to say, would you not want to kick the extra point there? Because your offense was keeping up with USC's offense. It wasn't like USC was just going up and down the field and Utah wasn't keeping up with them. They were neck and neck. I mean, I get why you do that because, yes, you want to go on and seal it and you win or lose one way or the other. But most of the time, you kick it and say, okay, like, let's play for overtime. I think we can make it in overtime. Now, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but that's just my thinking. Because you're at home, it's not. Now, if it was in USC, I get it. Like, go for 2. But you were at home.
Gerald said that USC defense stood up pretty good against Notre Dame. I was surprised. Yes, they did.
Notre Dame's offense isn't the greatest in the country either, and it was at home. But still, they played well on defense. But again, James Scott, if you like, momentum, go for 2 and win. I agree. It's one of those things where if it works, you're a genius. If you don't get it, then you're an idiot. That's what people think. I mean, literally, it's what people think. It's not a good call or a bad call.
So,
it's only if it works.
So you could see it from both ends of the spectrum. You can see it from the point of kicking the extra point and play for extra, but I can also see it from the point of view of taking the 2 and win. Like LSU Bama is another prime example of that. LSU could have simply just kicked it and played again. Utah, same thing. But
Yeah, that's what it came down to. They just decided, like Brian Kelly, like the great BK. Just kidding, you're not that good, coach. Like BK decided, I'm ready to go home. We're gonna try to go for this. If we get this, we win. If we don't, we lose. Okay, on to the next one. Because I guarantee you, both of those teams going into those games, probably more LSU than Utah, but they probably had some doubt. Granted, they both had the home field advantage, which does always play a factor to a degree. And don't mind me, I'm just over here eating my cookies.
You guys are good. I'm just wondering if I can continue my assessment of this game. I'm waiting so hard. I want to get this.
Sorry,
out.
Jeffrey. I just thought I'd throw that out there. That's
You're
interesting.
Good,
great discussion. It was a great discussion for sure because of the argument, whether to go or not. The way I always say, again, if you get it, you're smart. If you don't, you're an idiot. That's just the way it is. That is literally the way people view it, unfortunately.
Because it makes you think about this game a little bit, because what if Utah doesn't get it? Then we're looking at USC in a different light. Like, then we're maybe thinking Utah has the advantage because USC won that game and Utah's coming in.
Yeah, but I think at the same time, too, sorry, after I say this, you can go, Jeffrey, but I don't think if USC beats Utah, I don't think Utah's the one in this game. We're probably looking at USC Oregon or USC Washington, if that was the case. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just how the marbles fell. It's interesting to talk about and look at, but it's what happened. The past is the past, and we need to focus on this game.
It has an impact on this game, though.
I know, but we're already 20 minutes till 3 hours. It's going to be 3.5 before we're done.
All right.
I'm sorry, Jeffrey.
I started out my monologue. You're good, Austin. You're good.
It's okay.
I started out my monologue with, this is not Rice Eccles. Again, this is not Rice Eccles. It's not at It's not at Utah. This is in California. This is a completely different scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Utah, they were able to win by 1 point on a 2-point conversion at home. So I just feel Utah, they're a great team, and Cameron Rising is a great quarterback. And Utah's having a great season that unfortunately got overshadowed by the fact that they lost to Florida, and it took everybody's mind, basically everything was away from them, and no one was talking about them. But they're still a great team. But USC only lost by 1 point at their place. And USC is playing great right now. And unlike TCU, where if they lose, there's still a chance they will get in. If USC loses, they are done. And they know that. TCU, there's a chance if they lose closely, as me and Buckeye Mike have said, They will probably get in. USC is done. They have to win. They know they have to win. And the way that they've played at the end of this season shows me that they want to win. They want to win. And as Gerald points out, I think USC is a better team now than when they played Utah the first time. I agree with that. USC is playing very good right now. They're playing fantastic. And obviously the Heisman campaign for Caleb Williams is in full force. So if USC plays like they have played the last few weeks, they will not lose to Utah like they did at Rice-Eccles by 1. They will win 38-35 over Utah. Just a 3-point win. I think USC is going to be close. Utah is going to play hard to spoil the Trojans' party. But USC is going to get it done, and they're going to make the college football playoff. 38-35. Fight on for Tony. Go Trojans.
Now, before Jackson goes real quick, I do want to point out that this game is actually being played at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, where the Raiders play.
Okay. All right. Well, it's closer to California than Utah, so there you go. I had to rush my research here. I focus on the G5, baby.
The Raiders.
G5 King.
Well, I'm a little more confident USC than Jeffrey is. Because I have USC winning 38-27 in the Pac-12 title game.
You think it's Notre Dame all over again?
Could be.
That's what the Notre Dame score was.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. This game here, Jackson, Jeffrey, Mike, I'm surprised y'all didn't. Buckeye Mike, I'm surprised y'all didn't pull this statistic out. But Dalton Kincaid had over 200 yards receiving in that game, and I think 2 touchdowns. USC could not stop Dalton Kincaid to save their life. Cam Rising was just throwing the checkdowns and throwing the drags and the slants to Kincaid every time, and USC's defense was getting torched by that. And Cam Rising played a special game that night. He did. Off the loss to UCLA, I believe, and he played a special game. And many people, that was his prove-it game. Because many people thought Cam Rising, you don't have it. You can't win the big one. You just can't. And he proved that night, hey, I'm for real. You're going to put some respect on my name, whether you like it or not. And he won that game. And then USC, on the USC side of things, defense can be awful at times. Run defense, just atrocious. Pass defense comes and goes. But what they can do is they can get turnovers. And that is what saved their bacon this year, is the fact that they get the takeaways when it matters. USC's offense, they lost Travis Dye for the year. Like, prayers up to him. That sucks. He was a big piece of this offense. But it's going to be Austin Jones running the ball and then running the ball from here on out. I think he needs to have a big game, establish the run for the Trojans, then get Caleb Williams and to throw some big passes. And Caleb Williams is on his Heisman campaign. I think he has another big game. I mean, this is going to be a close one. Both defenses are going to be tested again. Just like it's been said, this is not USC. This is not Rice-Eccles. This is Vegas. And I feel the second time around,
California.
USC wins. USC wins 45-38 in a shootout. This time, USC's defense is the reason they win at the end.
I want to point out.
Go Trojans.
Quick,
Fight on.
I want to point out
Tony
real
Rick.
quick that when you say Cameron Rising has not had a big game before where he's put respect on his name, they did beat Oregon last year.
Twice.
So
Twice in 3 weeks.
But here's the thing, though. The defense is what got the respect those 2 games, gentlemen. Cam Rising didn't get much respect still. The game
He got a lot
against
he did
USC
get a
is
lot
when-
of respect in the Ohio State game in the Rose Bowl when he played out of his mind and then he got hurt and people were talking about him. And I know what you mean, though. I feel you.
But the USC game was one game where he just took it over himself and said, "You know what? I'm gonna win it. If my defense ain't gonna do it for me this time." It was a special night, and it may never be duplicated again.
My
Now
turn.
you, Buckeye Mike.
So I bet this left a nasty taste in Will's mouth. He took USC.
Shocking.
The reason I didn't bring up Dalton Kincaid, he got really banged up in the win versus Colorado, which has made the entire receiving core for Utah questionable, including himself. He is kind of questionable, but most likely to play in this game.
That's not good if the entire receiving core is questionable.
Like the unit as a whole is questionable.
I know,
You know
I
what
was
mean?
kidding. I was kidding.
So on USC's offense, Caleb Williams on the year, 4,063 yards, 44 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. The Trojans only have 4 giveaways. And Austin Jones has really stepped up. This year he has 54 catches for 810 yards and 8 touchdowns. Mario Williams, Taj Washington, and Brendan Rice also have gotten really involved in the receiving core for the Trojans. The interior offensive line for the offense has been a key strength, led by Brett Nealon. I want to see the O-line stand strong and get good blocks and give Caleb time. There are so many weapons on offense that entire offense has so much speed. As far as their defense, let's see. The Trojans are expected to have 6'6", 200-pound linebacker Eric Gentry back and healthy, which is key. Lee on the defense has 69 tackles. USC as a defense is second nationally with 19 interceptions. Malachi Blackman has 10 pass breakups and 3 interceptions. Kalen Bullock has 5 interceptions, 4 pass breakups, and 43 tackles. As far as the USC defense, mostly they give up a lot of yards, has gotten better lately, can cause takeaways, but also give up a lot of points, which I think I said earlier. Utah's offense. Cam Rising has 3,020 yards on 28 touchdowns and 7 interceptions for the year. Micah Bernard has to take over at running back 1 for Thomas. Again, questionable receiving core. I mentioned that. As far as the Utah offense, an impressive O-line. They've only allowed 8 sacks. They're very solid on offense, but they don't have any vertical speed. They have depth problems. And USC has to make Rising uncomfortable and force him to make plays and force the football in coverages that create turnovers. On the defense, let's see, what did I already mention? Blah, blah, blah. The Utes have 4 sacks. Had 4 sacks in their first meeting. Gabe Reed will need to be the key to this game. Clark Phillips has 6 interceptions this season, questionable. How much man coverage will Utah dare run versus the USC receiving core? That'll be a huge question. Probably the Utah defense probably will struggle as they have in these big games all year. The D needs to step up and don't let them go over the top of you. Keep everything in front of you, just like I've said with everybody tonight. The big keys for USC is showcase the toughness versus the run. And for Utah, the defense must perform better as a whole and make every possession count. With that said, I want it to be known, I'm praying to God for Utah to win this game. But I'm taking a page out of the GOAT's book. I'm thinking with my brain, and I'm giving my pick to USC 35, Utah 28. So, gentlemen, after I have blabbed, had a little hiccup, and we've done all our picks, the standings will be decided between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
You got USC, right?
Yeah, everybody has USC.
We all do.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked no one picked Utah.
I want to so bad, but if there's anything I've learned from you in the short time I've been here.
Oh man, thanks, man.
Here,
have we
not here.
picked the same? Have we picked the same on every game, or is there any differences at all between me and you, Buckeye Mike?
The difference between you and me is gonna be Tulane needs to win the AAC. If they do, you're ahead of me. If UCF wins, I got you.
Okay, if every other result, okay. There's not a lot separating for sure. I mean, it's crazy.
You and I are against one
Here's
another.
the thing. I picked 2 games different than everybody, I think. So I could really win this.
Fresno and Boise State and Coastal Carolina and Troy.
Yeah, if they
And-
win and all my other picks go as I planned, I could really have a good weekend.
Oh, if Coastal wins, we're done. It's all over. It's all over.
Yeah,
I'm not. I'd probably finish first place.
that's what he's saying. If Coastal wins, you have first place. But if Coastal or Fresno wins, Austin basically has first place this week locked in.
I'll remind you guys when North Carolina wins, laughing out loud.
Oh, will do that to us.
Oh,
North Carolina wins. So
I was gonna say yeah, because Will took North Carolina.
Mm.
he'll be a happy.
Is there any way Will can create separation, or is it just North Carolina winning?
Well, he's got Toledo and Ohio. He's the only
We've
one.
got Toledo and
So Will can
North
actually
Carolina.
make some separation. So Will can actually lock up first.
We all can. I mean, it's just the games that we pick differently have to break our way, and we all can win. I mean, it's not like Austin or Will's got a better chance. We all got the same amount of chance right now.
I actually have.
Jackson,
Go ahead.
Jackson, you went more safe than anybody, didn't you?
What?
UTSA, Ohio,
Jackson,
Boise,
you went more
Troy,
safe, didn't
Tulane,
you?
Clemson, I'll go Michigan. Yeah, basically.
The only one that I picked
So
was
Jackson, who does
K-State,
he need
really.
to break his way?
That was it.
Who does he need to break his way?
He picked with the group on every game. Because it was always either 3-2 or 4-1, one way or the other. So he picked with the majority on every game. Or it was a sweep.
Yeah, he went safe, man. I went safe too. I mean, I could have been exactly with Jackson if I had picked TCU. I picked K-State. That's the only one.
Fresno
I mean,
and Coastal
I almost picked
are my 2
UNC,
riskies.
Yeah.
but I didn't. But yeah, I played it safe.
Because, I mean, here's the thing. For me, Fresno Boise is a complete toss-up because I like Jake Hayner's story. But I love Boise. And, I mean, who doesn't love the blue field?
I wanted to go with Purdue. I was really tempted to after I realized the stat with Jeff Brom against top 3 teams.
Oh man.
But then I was like, no, I'm not going to chance it.
But with that all being said, gentlemen, we will recap and re-look over these games on Sunday night. So make sure you all join us to get this in-depth look at all these games. Who knows? We may have a bunch of upsets. Who knows? Purdue, North Carolina, and who North Carolina could win, and maybe LSU wins. It turns the college
LSU?
football world upside down.
Or
'Cause they're-
Coastal over Troy.
Because there is a chance, there is a slight like 0.0000001% chance that the winner coming in on Sunday's show is like they only have like 1 or 2 wins, and that won them this week.
Oh
Awesome.
man, we'll know.
But
We'll
we'd like
know if, like I said, if Coastal beats Troy, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be real bad.
For every one of us, except for Austin.
Then that means Purdue's beating Michigan, and that means UNC's beating Clemson. That means LSU's beating Georgia. It's all over, man.
Austin. LS who? Oh, LS.
But with that being said, we'd like to thank you all for being here. We hope you enjoy your night and enjoy our picks. We will see you Sunday night for the post-game recap, everybody.
Like, comment, and
Please like and
subscribe.
subscribe.
Stay safe and stay warm and wear a lot of lawn sleeves like I do.
Yep.
I got all three.
Thanks for being here, everybody. It was a fun time, and I can't wait for the Sunday show, guys.
Just
Thanks
don't
for
live in
being
your
here, buddy.
basement anymore.
Fight on, Trojans.